Chapter 700. In the direction that Ku-he was pointing at, a blood-red mountain covered in ripples was faintly discernible. Looking closely, there were no trees or beasts in the mountain. Above the circular mountain pass was the so-called Emperor Treasure. As for the surroundings of the mountain pass, there were countless powerful figures gathered. Even the weakest among them had already entered the sixth heaven of the immortal king realm. Half of them were quasi-immortal emperors. It could be said that the top experts of the entire sky market were gathered around the bloody specter mountain. Of course, from the way these experts were dressed, they could be divided into nearly 100 factions. Some of the experts wore robes with a ferocious white tiger with its bloody mouth open on the back. Some of the experts wore robes with a fierce long sword on the chest. Some of the experts wore robes with a crimson divine dragon on the back. Some of the experts wore robes with an ancient mammoth with a tortoise shell on its back. All of them were different. Among the 100 or so forces, there were 5 that attracted the most attention. Among these 5 factions, other than the founder whose aura was above Immortal Emperor Qinsong's, there were also other high-level Immortal Emperors. Immortal Emperor, you should be very familiar with the sky market. 4 Symbols Sect, Boundless Peak, Brahma Temple, 3-Finger Immortal Sect, and Nether Sea Valley are the 5 strongest factions in the sky market, especially the leaders of the top 3 forces. It is said that they have already reached the peak of the 8 Stars realm and are only 1 step away from entering the 9 Stars realm. Ku-he stretched out his hand and pointed in the direction of the 5 forces as he spoke to Chu Bei. Chu Bei glanced indifferently at Ku-he. He did not respond. He quietly hid himself in the army of one of the powers. He watched the movements of the blood-purple light above the mountain pass and waited quietly. Immortal Emperor, are you waiting for the right time to attack? Ku-he came to Chu Bei's side. Immortal Emperor, this sky market can no longer accommodate me. Can I join your faction? If you continue to talk, I don't mind making you unable to open your mouth forever. Hearing Ku-he's chattering, Chu Bei's face darkened, and a cold killing intent surged in his eyes. Hearing this, Ku-he immediately shut his mouth and did not say another word. What do you think it is? You can actually block our attack? A voice came from the direction of Boundless Peak, the second most powerful force in Sky Market. The person who spoke was a tall and thin old man. He looked like a javelin, and his hair and beard were all dark green. He stood there quietly, his entire being giving off an illusory feeling, as if he was an illusion. The old man's monarch title was Boundless. He was the Peak Master of Boundless Peak, the second strongest person in Sky Market. There are no records about it. Perhaps we can only find out when it fully emerges. In the direction of the Burning Heaven Temple, a fat old man with a bald head and a resplendent Dharma idol behind him responded. He was the abbot of the Burning Heaven Temple, the third strongest expert in the Sky Market. Do you think those guys outside will believe our excuses? The person who spoke was a middle-aged man in a red robe. His face was expressionless, or rather, his face was completely stiff, and his cheeks were sunken. However, if one were to look closely, they would discover that there were 3 fingers on his right hand that were emitting terrifying energy fluctuations. He was Immortal Emperor 3 Fingers, the Lord of the Emperor State and the 4th strongest expert in the Sky Market. Even Yuan Di wouldn't be able to break the seal in a short period of time. By the time the seal is broken, we will have obtained this item. It doesn't matter whether they believe our excuses or not. At this moment, an old man with silver hair and a goatee spoke. He narrowed his eyes and fixed his gaze on the blood-purple light above the bloody specter mountain. He was the sect master of the 4 Symbols Sect, the strongest expert in the Sky Market, and the 6th strongest on the Immortal Emperor leaderboard in the entire chaotic universe. Buzz buzz. Suddenly, the blood-purple light above the mountain entrance let out a buzzing sound. It's moving. It's moving. The light of the Emperor artifact is fading. We can vaguely see it. A brick? The Emperor artifact is actually a brick. Gradually, the blood-purple light disappeared, revealing the appearance of the object inside. However, the moment they saw the object's appearance, the eyes of the experts around the bloody specter mountain shrank, and they could not help but exclaim. Even the sect master of the 4 Symbols Sect, Immortal Emperor Wuya, Immortal Emperor 3 Fingers, and the others had a strange expression. They looked at each other with surprise in their eyes. The so-called Emperor artifact was actually a pitch-black stone brick. There must be something strange about it. The sect master of the Four Symbols sect frowned. After he finished speaking, he stretched out his hand to grab the black brick. Boom. However, just as the sect master of the Four Symbols sect's hand was about to land on the black brick, a light shield appeared on the surface of the black brick and blocked the huge hand. Accompanied by a low, muffled sound, the mysterious power on the light shield actually repelled the huge hand. The Origin Artifact Catalog has appeared. Host must obtain it. At this moment, the system's voice rang in Chu Bei's mind again. What kind of power is that? It's the Four Symbols Immortal Emperor, the strongest expert in the sky market. He's someone who is infinitely close to being 9 stars. Even he can't get the brick. Judging from this brick is definitely an Emperor artifact. And it's a peerless Emperor artifact. Seeing the Four Symbols Immortal Emperor's huge hand being repelled, the expert's expressions became even more shocked. Let's attack together and take it down. After we study it thoroughly, we'll decide who it belongs to. The Four Symbols Immortal Emperor swept his gaze across the other Immortal Emperors. Okay, since these Immortal Emperors had experienced the terrifying defense of the blood-purple light ball before, they all nodded in agreement when the Four Symbols Immortal Emperor spoke. Rumble. In the next moment, dozens of Immortal Emperor auras burst forth from the surroundings of the Bloody Spectre Mountain, including the Four Symbols Immortal Emperor. A total of 61 Immortal Emperors attacked at the same time. Amidst the booming sounds, 61 terrifying beams of light, carrying the Immortal Emperor's power, shot toward the light shield outside the black brick from all directions. Among them, there was no lack of Source Heaven energy. Damn it, it's actually so sturdy. Looking at the light shield that was still intact even after combining all the Immortal Emperor's powers, one of the Immortal Emperors cried out, "Perhaps this item is a blessing for the sky market." The Four Symbols Immortal Emperor said, "Before the seal is broken, we must obtain this Emperor artifact. When those fellows outside come in, I'm afraid this Emperor artifact will no longer belong to the sky market." Lord Immortal Emperor, do you see that? All the Immortal Emperors in the sky market can't do anything to that Emperor artifact. You can imagine how terrifying it is. Kuhi pointed at the black brick as he tilted his head to look at Chu Bei. Chu Bei still ignored Kuhi. His attention was completely focused on the black brick. When he confirmed that the black brick was the Origin Artifact Catalog that the system wanted, he had mixed feelings. In his opinion, since it was a catalog, it should be from a sheepskin scroll or a book. Unexpectedly, it was a huge black brick. All of you, attack together. At this moment, the Four Symbols Immortal Emperor ordered the experts below the Immortal Emperor stage. Upon hearing this, the other experts around the Bloody Spectre Mountain did not dare to hesitate. They immediately gathered their strongest power and landed it on the light shield outside the black brick. Chapter 701. Chi. Time ticked by. It's working. There's a crack. One of the Celestial Emperors exclaimed excitedly after some time had passed. A crack had appeared on the surface of the black brick, and the crack was spreading at a speed visible to the naked eye. Boom. Another 15 minutes passed. Finally, with a loud explosion, the light barrier around the black brick completely exploded. At the same time, the terrifying energy from the explosion instantly destroyed all the attacks from the Celestial Emperors. There are flashing runes on it. These runes are very strange. I can't help but feel my heart palpitate when I look at them. Let's take it first and study it when we get back. When the light barrier broke, the Celestial Emperors, including the 4 phenomenon Celestial Emperors, sensed the aura flowing on the black brick and the pulsating mysterious runes. However, just as they were about to grab the black brick, a terrifying surge of Genesis Heaven energy suddenly surged out from the black brick. In the next instant, a huge hand appeared out of thin air. Who's there? The 4 phenomenon Celestial Emperors bellowed when they saw the huge hand. Then, they attacked together with the other Celestial Emperors. At the same time, the huge hand that appeared out of thin air also released an unparalleled surge of Genesis Heaven energy. Instantly, two terrifying forces collided at the location of the black brick. Boom! A deafening explosion rang out as the two forces canceled each other out. Subsequently, a young man in a green robe appeared on top of the black brick. Who's that? Where did he come from? He managed to block the four phenomenon Celestial Emperor's attack. No, to be precise, he's the joint attack of all the Celestial Emperors in the Sky Market. The Sky Market experts began to discuss among themselves when they saw the unfamiliar young man on top of the black brick. Cultivator Chu, do you think I won't recognize you just because you changed your appearance? The four phenomenon Celestial Emperors frowned as they stared at the young man with an ugly expression. Apart from him, Wuya, Sanji, and the other Celestial Emperors also recognized Chu Bei. Their expressions turned solemn. Seeing that the four phenomenon Celestial Emperors had recognized him, Chu Bei no longer concealed himself. He changed his appearance and revealed his true appearance. It's really the All-Heaven shop leader. Sky Market is sealed. How did he get in? Moreover, even if he's an 8-star advanced cultivator, he won't be able to easily withstand the combined attacks of all the Immortal Emperors. Moreover, the four phenomenon Immortal Emperor, Immortal Emperor Wuya, and the Brahma Heaven Immortal Emperor are infinitely close to the 9 stars. Any one of them should be stronger than the All-Heaven Shopmaster. After Chu Bei revealed his true appearance, the expressions of the group of Sky Market powerhouses changed with a whoosh. The weakest among the people present was already at the 6th heaven of the Immortal King realm. They were especially concerned about the great domain of the chaos. They were naturally aware of Chu Bei's performance in the battle in the high heavens. I didn't expect this to be your true strength. You were still hiding something during the battle with Qiansong. You should have already stepped into the realm of 9 stars. The four phenomenon Celestial Emperors, Wuya Celestial Emperor, Brahma Heaven Celestial Emperor, and other top experts fixed their eyes on Chu Bei. What? The All-Heaven Shopmaster has stepped into the realm of 9 stars. Doesn't that mean he's stronger than the four phenomenon Celestial Emperors? No wonder Emperor Yuan invited him to the Origin Sky Pavilion. The other experts were shocked when they heard the four phenomenon Celestial Emperor's words. The person who saved me is the All-Heaven Shopmaster. In the sea of people, he stared at Chu Bei in a daze. His expression was somewhat absent-minded. He's even a 9-star Celestial Emperor. If he joins the All-Heaven shop, after regaining his senses, an excited expression appeared on He's face. I've lost this item before, so I need to take it away. I hope you won't stop me. Chu Bei glanced at the four phenomenon Celestial Emperors and the others as he pointed at the black brick. You lost it? Fellow Taoist Chu, you must be joking. The four phenomenon Celestial Emperor sneered. You're not the only one who witnessed its birth. Wuya Celestial Emperor said, Fellow Taoist Chu, isn't this reason a little too far-fetched? I don't care what you think, but I must take this item away. Chu Bei said coldly. So what if you're a 9-star Celestial Emperor? Do you think you can take the Emperor artifact from all the Celestial Emperors in Sky Market by yourself? The four phenomenon Celestial Emperor stared coldly at Chu Bei. His aura began to rise as 190 drops of Genesis Heaven power appeared around him. At the same time, 180 drops of Genesis Heaven power appeared around Wuya Celestial Emperor and the Brahma Heaven Celestial Emperor. As for Celestial Emperor Three Fingers, he had 160 drops of Genesis Heaven power. Chu Bei narrowed his eyes when he sensed the auras surging toward him. Sky Market was indeed stronger than High Heavens. The Celestial Emperors in Sky Market stared coldly at Chu Bei from above Blood Spectre Mountain. The four phenomenon Celestial Emperor frowned and no longer spoke. Instead, he pointed his right hand at Chu Bei. With a buzzing sound, 9 dazzling rays of divine light shot out from his palm. Every ray of divine light was composed of Genesis Heaven power. The moment they shot out, the 9 azure divine lights intertwined together, releasing a terrifying aura that soared after they fused. At the same time, Wuya Celestial Emperor, the Brahma Heaven Celestial Emperor, and the other Celestial Emperors also attacked. Terrifying killing techniques that contained Genesis Heaven power blasted toward Chu Bei. Rumble. On the battlefield, All the celestial emperors in Sky Market were targeting Chu Bei. The majestic Genesis heaven aura was suffocating. The experts below the immortal emperor realm stared blankly at the battlefield. They held their breaths and stared unblinkingly at Chu Bei, who remained unmoved. However, just as the terrifying attacks led by the four phenomenon celestial emperors were about to land on Chu Bei from all directions, a golden river suddenly gushed out from his body. Splash! The golden river blocked the joint attack of the four phenomenon celestial emperors and the other powerhouses amidst the sound of surging water. He blocked it. He blocked the attacks of all the celestial emperors in Sky Market by himself. Has the all-heavens shop store master already become this powerful? Was that Genesis heaven power? But why is it golden? The experts who were watching the battle stared at the battlefield in a daze. The battlefield had calmed down, but they had yet to recover from the shock of the collision between the two terrifying forces. Golden Genesis heaven power. You've entered the 9-star stage. In the advanced stage, the pupils of the four phenomenon celestial emperors, Wuya's celestial emperor and the other celestial emperors suddenly shrank. Their expressions grew increasingly solemn as they stared at the golden river surrounding Chu Bei. When a celestial emperor broke through the 8-star stage and entered the 9-star stage, the Genesis heaven power would undergo a qualitative change. Its color would change from blue to gold. Chapter 702. I'll definitely take away what's mine. If any of you want to stop me, feel free to try. Chu Bei swept his gaze across the four phenomenon celestial emperors and the others. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his right hand in the air, emitting a faint glow. The surrounding Genesis heaven power immediately transformed into a giant hand that grabbed at the pitch-black brick below. This belongs to Heavenly Market. Even if you're at the 9-star stage, you won't be able to take it away. The four phenomenon celestial emperors said coldly. Then, they joined forces with the other celestial emperors and attacked together to prevent Chu Bei from taking the black brick away. Buzz buzz, however, this time, when the two terrifying Genesis heaven energy collided with the black brick, the latter suddenly trembled and emitted a strange buzzing sound. In the next instant, it spewed out a black divine light that shrouded the entire three-fingered emperor province and quickly spread to the entire Heavenly Market. In an instant, the originally bright Heavenly Market turned into a world of endless darkness. It was pitch black and nothing could be seen. Food. All of you will be my food. Delicious food. Before the Heavenly Market experts could react to what had happened, a deep voice that seemed to come from the abyss rang in their minds, causing their hearts to palpitate. At that moment, in the endless darkness, they saw a pair of incomparably huge and strange eyes at the spot where the black brick was located. The eyes were blood red and had mysterious runes that made one's heart tremble. What's going on? Was it talking just now? Where did it come from? What does it have to do with the Emperor artifact? The group of celestial emperors stared blankly at the pair of blood-red eyes, their faces filled with confusion. They extended their divine consciousness, only to discover that the moment their divine consciousness came into contact with the blood-red eyes, it would mysteriously disappear. It was extremely strange. So, it's guarding it. At that moment, in addition to the deep voice that seemed to come from the abyss, another voice rang in Chu Bei's mind. When Chu Bei heard the voice, he shuddered. It was as though his entire body had been injected with a bone-chilling cold that could not be resisted. Ever since the system was activated, every sound it made was extremely stiff, just like a machine. However, this time, it sounded like an ordinary creature was speaking. This was something that had never happened before. Host, its appearance is beyond my expectations. Maybe I'll have to sleep for a while. The system's voice once again rang out in Chu Bei's mind. But before the confused Chu Bei could open his mouth to ask anything, the system interface flew out of his mind. Which one are you? At this moment, the pair of crimson eyes above the black brick seemed to have noticed something and immediately looked in the direction of the golden disc transformed from the system interface. It was as if it had found an old friend, but it wasn't sure which one it was. As his voice rang out, a terrifying power far superior to Genesis heaven power shot out from his blood-red eyes. The hearts of the four phenomenon's immortal emperors and the other experts sank when they sensed the spreading aura. Their bodies seemed to be imprisoned, and they couldn't move at all. At the same time, the golden disk and the system interface erupted with a terrifying power that Chu Bei had never imagined, instantly enveloping the power released from the blood-red eyes. In the outside world. Look, what's happening in Tiansu? It's so chaotic. What's going on? Are the three great forces really at war? No matter how fierce the battle between the three great forces is, it shouldn't have caused such a situation in a major region. The experts' expressions changed drastically as they stared at Tiansu, which had suddenly turned into a black ball of light. Their faces were filled with disbelief. Two forces are intertwining. They're filling the entire Tiansu. These two forces seem to be from the same source, and their auras are even stronger than Genesis heaven power. What are the four phenomenons and Boundless doing? The immortal emperors of the 8 stars and above seem to have sensed something, and their faces darkened. Rumble. Before the immortal emperor's divine consciousness could penetrate Tiansu, Tiansu trembled and exploded with a loud bang. It was this explosion that caused the entire grand domain of chaos to be immersed in a deathly silence. It took a few seconds for them to recover from their shock, but the fear on their faces was still there. Since Tiansu had exploded, the sealing array naturally disappeared. In the starry sky, immortal emperors from the various major regions descended on Tiansu and used various methods to drive away the endless darkness. After an unknown period of time, the darkness finally disappeared. However, as far as the eye could see, only a few figures were left in the vast sky market. The four phenomenon's immortal emperors, Immortal Emperor Wuya, Immortal Emperor Three Fingers, and the others were all 8-star immortal emperors. Besides them, there was no one else in Tiansu. Where did the people of Tiansu go? Who can tell me what's going on? Why are there so few people left in Tiansu, one of the 9 most powerful regions? Where are the others? Could it be that they all died in the previous explosion? But what's with the explosion? Even an origin emperor can't destroy an entire major region in one strike. Every major region is supported by laws that surpass the power of origin heaven. Even an 8-star or 9 stars immortal emperor would have to spend at least a few years to destroy these laws in order to destroy a major region. Looking at the empty Tiansu apart from the 12 figures, the experts were dumbfounded. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Although they had seen it with their own eyes, they still couldn't believe their eyes. This was completely beyond their understanding. Perhaps an 8-star or 9 stars immortal emperor could destroy everything in a major region in a short period of time, but it was impossible for them to destroy a major region's barrier. This was because every major region was supported by laws that surpassed the power of origin heaven. This was why, after hundreds of millions of years, some lost major regions with no traces of life were born. For phenomenons, Boundless, what happened? What are you hiding? Several immortal emperors questioned the four phenomenon's immortal emperor and the others. Dead. Everyone below the 8-star level is dead. The all-heaven shopmaster is also dead. They're all dead. That's not an emperor artifact. It's the source of destruction. The four phenomenon's immortal emperor, Boundless immortal emperor, and the others muttered to themselves as they looked at the Tiansu that no longer existed. At this moment, their auras were chaotic and extremely weak. They gave off the feeling that they were in their twilight years and were on the verge of collapsing. Under the urging of the other major regions, one of the 12 surviving immortal emperors recounted what had happened in Tiansu and quickly spread the news. It didn't take long for the entire chaotic heavens to stir. Chapter 703. Have you heard about what happened in Sky Market? The news has already spread. Of course we know. I didn't expect Sky Market to suffer such a calamity this time. Everyone below the 8-star celestial emperor realm is dead. In billions of years, Sky Market is probably the first great region to truly wither away. Even the realm wall is destroyed. But speaking of which, what are those blood-red eyes that the four phenomenon celestial emperors mentioned? They're even more terrifying than 9-star celestial emperors. Speaking of 9-star celestial emperors, Who would have thought that the All-Heaven Shop's sect master was at this realm? He's already at the same level as Lord Origin Emperor. It's a pity that even an existence like the All-Heaven Shop's sect master died under those blood-red eyes. But what makes me depressed is that even the All-Heaven Shop's sect master died. How did the four phenomenon celestial emperors, immortal Emperor Wuya, and the others survive? Also, where did the blood-red eyes, the golden disc, and the brick-like emperor artifact go? Experts in every corner of the primal chaos great regions were discussing intensely. 9 stars celestial emperors, fellow Taoist Chu really hid his strength well. Fortunately, our cultivation realm isn't high enough, so we can't ignore the ceiling formation like he did. Otherwise, we might have died in that explosion too. Immortal Emperor experts' divine wills intertwined as they communicated with each other. Above high heavens, All Heaven Shop's Emperor Province, fellow Taoist Chu's palace. Master can't have died. It's impossible. When Yifan, Chen Nan, Shi Hao, and the others heard the news, their faces immediately turned gray, and their bodies inexplicably staggered. Master's strength is unfathomable. It's impossible to estimate. How could he die in an explosion? That's right. Moreover, even the four phenomenon celestial emperors and immortal Emperor Wuya didn't die. Master is stronger than them, so how could he die? In my opinion, Master must have killed the blood-red eyes and left with the brick emperor artifact. Xiao Yin, Tang San, and the other personal disciples couldn't accept this news, and they all spoke out one after another. However, not long after they finished speaking, their faces became even darker. This was because they suddenly realized that the force that had summoned them back to the chaotic heavens was slowly disappearing. This vast world was beginning to reject them. Gradually, Xiao Yin, Tang San, Chun Nan, Yifan, Shi Hao, Junimo Xie, Luo Feng, and Linli's bodies gradually became transparent. With a Wang sound, they disappeared. Brother Xiao, Brother Tang, and the others have been sent back to their respective space-time? Master's power has disappeared. Could it be that the old man has really fallen? No, that won't happen. Sun Wukong, Zhu Beiji, Monk Sand, the Golden Cicada, and Ao Lai looked at each other and mumbled to themselves as they watched Xiao Yin, Yifan, and the others disappear. On this day, the 9 stars celestial emperors from the Zero faction found the 4 phenomenon celestial emperors and took him away. Apart from the Zero faction, many other mysterious factions that transcended the emperor level ranking appeared one after another. They each chose the 8 stars celestial emperors who survived the sky market explosion and took them away. After witnessing this scene, the great beings of the chaotic heavens became even more aware of how terrifying these mysterious factions were. Yuan D, 9 stars, number 1 on the celestial emperor ranking. Unexpectedly, these transcendent factions could actually send 9 stars celestial emperors. Moreover, it seemed like these 9 stars celestial emperors weren't the strongest of these transcendent factions. The appearance of these mysterious factions also allowed all the great beings to vaguely understand the other side of the chaotic heavens. Although the 12 celestial emperors of the sky market were taken away, the discussions about the sky market were still intense. In the sky market explosion, a total of 62 celestial emperors, including the leader of the All-Heaven Shop, died, and only 12 survived. For this reason, this day was also known as the Day of the Fallen Emperors. At the same time, in a strange and mysterious azure space-time tunnel, a young man in a purple robe was lying on his back in a long river of runes. His eyes were tightly shut, and if it weren't for the faintly discernible aura fluctuations, one would think that he was a corpse. Around his body, a pitch-black brick was floating up and down, emitting a faint light. On the surface of the brick, runes jumped and intertwined, continuously forming 18 mysterious illusions. It was very magical. Under the scouring of the long river of runes, the pitch-black brick slowly approached the young man's head and finally sank into his glabella. This young man was naturally Chu Bei, who died in the sky market explosion. When the pitch-black brick completely sank into Chu Bei's glabella, the azure space-time tunnel suddenly trembled and shook violently as if it could collapse at any time. After an unknown period of time, A ray of white light finally appeared in the space-time tunnel, as if it was the end of the tunnel. Chu Bei's body was slowly pushed into the white light, as if he had been hit by an invisible force. In a remote mountain village in a continuous mountain range, in a shabby wooden house, a young man in a purple robe was lying horizontally. Creak. Accompanied by the ear-piercing sound of the bed, the young man slowly opened his eyes. Hiss. When the young man woke up, he subconsciously wanted to get up. However, before he could support his hands on the bed, a tearing pain came from all over his body. This pain seemed to come from every cell in his body, and it was unbearable for ordinary people. The young man inhaled a breath of cold air and could only give up struggling. He turned his neck slightly and looked around. This was a very simple and crude room. Apart from some wooden furniture, there was also a small iron kettle that was steaming with rust. He really survived. The young man was none other than Chu Bei. Before the sky market explosion, he only knew that the system in his sea of consciousness had fought with the owner of the pair of blood-red eyes. It was only one collision that caused the explosion. As for the owner of the pair of blood-red eyes, he did not know where he went. However, the system had fallen into a long slumber. His sea of consciousness was now in chaos. The system interface, the Bodhi tree, the path understanding tree, the world seed, and everything else seemed to have been sealed. Only the black brick-like origin tool chart was floating up and down in his sea of consciousness, bringing with it mysterious runes from time to time. The most frightening thing was that not only did everything given by the system return to zero, but he also lost control of his own strength, as if it had been sealed and imprisoned. This feeling was as if his body had turned into a boundless and enormous energy reservoir, and this energy reservoir was sealed by a door, and he needed a key to open this door. Coincidentally, he did not know where to get this key. Even my divine consciousness can't leave my body. Where do I go from here? After checking the condition of his body, Chu Bei shook his head and sighed. There was a hint of self-mockery in his words. Chapter 704. On the wooden bed, Chu Bei pondered over his next course of action. He tried his best to endure the pain and raise his head. At this moment, he realized that he had been wrapped in white cloth and had turned into a mummy. The thick and pungent smell of herbs was wafting out from the cloth. Did some kind-hearted person do this? But they used it in the wrong place. Chu Bei smiled knowingly as he looked at the layers of cloth covering his body. At this moment, the wooden door was gently pushed open with a creak. A petite figure appeared in Chu Bei's line of sight. "Ah, you're finally awake." A clear and pleasant voice filled with excitement entered Chu Bei's ears. It was a 16 or 17-year-old girl wearing a long pink dress. She gave off a pure and pleasant feeling. She had a head of naturally flowing jet-black hair, fair skin, and a pair of extremely clear big eyes. When she saw that Chu Bei had woken up, the girl in pink hurried over to the bed and carefully supported his back. The corners of her lips curled into an angelic smile. "You're finally awake. You've been unconscious for 3 months. That day, Desha and I went up the mountain to pick herbs. When we saw you lying on the ground without moving at all and couldn't wake you up no matter how hard we tried, Desha and I decided to bring you back. However, it's strange. There are many jackals and wolves in the mountain, but you don't have a single wound on your body." At this point, the girl in pink bit her lip gently. "You were unconscious, but there were no wounds on your body. I couldn't use any medicine on you, so I could only wrap your entire body up. 3 months have passed, and everyone in the village said that you couldn't be saved and would never wake up. They said that we shouldn't waste any more time and should find a mountain to bury you. However, I had a feeling that you would wake up. It's a good thing that you really did wake up. Otherwise, I really wouldn't know what to do. Thank you." For some reason, Chu Bei wanted to reach out and touch the girl in pink's forehead. However, the moment he raised his arm, a piercing pain rose. Immediately, there was another round of gasps. In the end, Chu Bei could only spit out these 2 simple words. "You haven't recovered yet. You can't move." Seeing Chu Bei's pained expression, the girl in pink was clearly anxious. She hurriedly said, "Continue lying down. I'll get Grandpa Moo's wheelchair for you. If you want to go out and get some fresh air, I'll push you." The girl in pink calmly placed Chu Bei back on the bed and quickly left. He's even worse off than an ordinary person. Looking at the back of the girl in pink, Chu Bei let out another sigh. At that moment, the system fell into a deep slumber. His body was in a condition and he couldn't even use his spiritual sense. This directly caused him to become an ordinary person. Due to the fact that he could not move at all, he was even worse than an ordinary person. Da. Just as Chu Bei was deep in thought about life once again, the girl in pink returned with cheerful steps. At the same time, she brought with her a pure wooden wheelchair. Looking at the wooden grain on the wheelchair, it seemed to have been there for a few days and months. My name is Xiaohe. What's your name? Where are you from? Why did you faint in the mountains? Were you there to pick herbs too? The pure and beautiful girl in pink struggled to lift Chu Bei onto the wheelchair. She wiped the sweat from her forehead, and two sweet little dimples appeared on her cheeks. At the same time, her beautiful eyes were filled with confusion. Chu Bei. Meeting the girl in pink's gaze, Chu Bei's lips moved slightly. Where I came from and why I fainted, I can't remember. Don't tell me you lost your memory. Hearing Chu Bei's words, the girl in pink's mouth opened wide. Her big, watery eyes were filled with astonishment. After a long while, she calmed down and continued. Since you don't know where you came from, you can continue to stay with me. You look older than me, so I'll call you Big Brother Chu from now on. Chu Bei nodded slightly and said, Xiaohe, where is this? How much do you know about this world? Xiaohe pondered for a moment, then told him everything she knew. Is that all you know? Chu Bei continued. Yes. Xiaohe nodded her head seriously. This was a small mountain village with the surname Mu as the main surname. 90% of the villagers had the surname Mu. The full name of the girl in pink in front of him was Mu He. The mountain range outside the village was called the Broken Chi Mountains and was thousands of kilometers wide. Due to its vast area, the villagers had lived here for generations and were unable to walk out of the mountain range. However, Chu Bei learned from Xiaohe that there were still traces of cultivators in this world. At the very least, the immortals who could fly were cultivators. As long as he could find cultivators, he would truly understand this world. You've been unconscious for so long. Let me push you outside to get some fresh air. With that, before Chu Bei could respond, Xiaohe had already pushed Chu Bei out of the house. After leaving the house, Chu Bei looked around. Just as Xiaohe said, there were towering mountains and forests in the distance. As for the mountain village he was in, there were wooden houses everywhere. Although they were simple and crude, they were neatly arranged. Not long after Xiaohe pushed Chu Bei out of the house, a group of children who were playing on a spacious mountainous area not far away immediately ran over. Sister Xiaohe, he's awake. Father even said that you're stupid. He said you brought back a living dead. Are his legs crippled? Why is he sitting in Grandpa Mu's wheelchair? A group of 6 or 7-year-old children immediately surrounded Chu Bei and chattered nonstop. It was also at this moment that an incomparably tall and sturdy man hopped over from the east. He's awake. Xiaohe, he's really awake. Our medicine is still effective. The tall man's face was filled with excitement. He held a blade of grass in his hand and put it in his mouth. This is the big fool I mentioned to you. Don't be fooled by his big body. His intelligence is still a child. Little he pulled the big tall man to her side and said while looking at Chu Bei. Thud, thud, thud. At this time, there was a sudden rush of footsteps not far away, and the dust on the ground rose. Then several big men, each holding a hoe and a sickle, ran over quickly. Hurry up. We can't let that animal hurt our villagers. The leader shouted. Hey, you're alive. Look at you. It's obviously not recovered from a serious illness. It's windy outside. Go back to the house. Yes, your life is Xiaohe's. Don't go back to sleep after waking up. When the group of big men saw Chu Bei, they talked one after another. Uncle Gotzi, what's going on? What are you doing in such a hurry with knives in your hands? Xiaohe asked quickly when she saw the big men fully armed. Chapter 705. A ferocious beast just ran down from the mountain. It seemed to be extremely hungry and came to our village to eat people. Fortunately, someone discovered it in time. Otherwise, Who knows how many children would have been hurt? We are now rushing over to help. I won't talk to you anymore. It won't be good if we delay the time. You newcomer, wait for us to slaughter that beast. Tonight, we will hold a beast feast. At that time, we will let you have a taste of our village's barbecue skills." As they spoke, the group of burly men hurriedly ran in a direction. "Sister Xiaohe, we are going to watch the show." The group of children dispersed in a hubbub. "Are we going?" Desha looked at Xiaohe. Xiaohe hesitated for a moment and then lowered her head to look at Chu Bei in the wheelchair. "Big brother Chu, let me push you back to the house first?" "No, since all of you are going, push me as well," Chu Bei said. "Okay." Meeting Chu Bei's determined gaze, Xiaohe lightly bit her lips and agreed. However, in order to save time, the person pushing the wheelchair was changed to Desha. After turning around a few village paths, Chu Bei saw a group of people in his line of sight. At this moment, the men, women, and children of the village were gathered on a spacious flat ground. From time to time, the angry shouts of humans and the roars of ferocious beasts could be heard. Coming to the crowd, Chu Bei saw several burly men fighting with a ferocious beast. He saw that the ferocious beast's body was extremely huge. It was twice the size of an ordinary lion or tiger. Its body was incomparably sturdy. One could see the bulging muscles on its thick limbs. When it opened its mouth to roar, its sharp teeth emitted a cold light, causing people's hearts to palpitate. However, in the face of such a ferocious beast, the burly men did not have the slightest trace of fear on their faces. Each of them tightly gripped their hoes and sickles as they confronted the beast. Roar! As if it saw more and more people watching, the ferocious beast's roar became more urgent. In the next moment, it went crazy and pounced on one of the burly men as if it did not care about its life. Swish! The burly man hurriedly swung the hoe in his hand, successfully leaving a large wound on the ferocious beast. Although the big man had injured the ferocious beast had successfully gotten close to the big man. It endured the pain and slapped the big man away. When the large man was sent flying, the vicious beast immediately found an opening in that direction. It roared and jumped up, its eyes faintly glowing with a bloody light. Looking at the ferocious beast that had escaped from the encirclement, the group of burly men's faces suddenly changed. As for the surrounding villagers, they saw a pitch-black and enormous beast figure explosively rush out from the flying sand. Roar! A powerful beastly roar rang out. It seemed to carry a terrifying might that could shake one's soul, causing everyone's thoughts to momentarily pause. Xiaohe, who was facing the ferocious beast, looked at the ferocious beast that was pouncing towards her, and her delicate face instantly turned pale. In her line of sight, the sharp claws that flickered with a cold light were rapidly enlarging, getting closer and closer. The ferocious beast was very fast, and the wind pressure brought about by its enormous body swept away the dust on the ground. The biting cold wind from its claws seemed to have turned into a sharp blade, cutting through the air with a sizzling sound. It was about to tear Xiaohe's delicate body into several pieces. Not good. Its target is Xiaohe. Xiaohe, dodge. It's over. It's too late. Looking at the direction where the ferocious beast's claws were swinging, the villagers who finally reacted cried out in alarm. Their voices were filled with panic and anxiety. It was as if they could already foresee the bloody scene that was about to happen to Xiaohe. At this moment, Xiaohe was in despair. Looking at the enormous figure that was getting closer and closer, Xiaohe's petite body trembled continuously. In the end, she closed her eyes as if she had accepted her fate. Am I going to die like this? Sob sob. Being scratched by those claws must be very, very painful. It's a good thing that it chose me. If it was someone else, their family would definitely be very sad. Xiaohe muttered to herself. Bam. However, just as Xiaohe was feeling disheartened and all the villagers covered their eyes with their hands, unable to bear to see Xiaohe being scratched to death, a low, muffled sound rang out. In the next moment, a scorching hot liquid splashed onto the faces of Xiaohe and the villagers around her. Smelling the stench of blood and feeling the sticky liquid on their faces, Xiaohe and the villagers opened their eyes again. With one look, They were all dumbfounded. Looking at the scene in front of them, they were all in a daze. Their mouths were wide open, as if they had turned into wooden men who could not think. The enormous ferocious beast was nowhere to be seen. All that was left was a ghastly pile of bloody mud. However, judging from the position of the bloody mud and the faintly visible bone fragments, they could tell that this was the ferocious beast from before. What's going on? Why did that beast suddenly become like this? The villagers came back to their senses and looked at each other in dismay. Xiaohe, are you all right? The villagers came back to their senses and hurriedly asked. I'm fine. Xiaohe was stunned and stammered. She was still in a state of shock. The immortals in heaven must be protecting us. He couldn't bear to see Xiaohe being killed by that beast, so he sent down the punishment. A villager said. Then, the villagers knelt on the ground at the same time. They put their hands together and prayed to the sky with great devotion. Brother Chu, did you feel a gust of wind just now? It was when that ferocious beast pounced on you. Xiaohe seemed to have thought of something. She stretched out her hand and pointed at the pile of flesh on the ground in front of her. Then, she looked at Chu Bei, who was sitting in the wheelchair closest to her. Just now, when the sharp claws were about to land on her body, she felt a sudden gust of wind behind her. Then, when she opened her eyes, the ferocious beast had turned into a bloody mud. There was no wind. You must have been mistaken. Chu Bei smiled knowingly. The death of the ferocious beast was naturally caused by him. That invisible force also burst out from his body. At that time, when he saw that the sharp claws were about to penetrate Xiaohe, he was eager to stand up and kill the ferocious beast. However, no matter how much he shouted in his heart, he could only move his head. The majestic force in his body was not for him to use at all. However, just when he was unwilling to give up, a wisp of energy shot out from his body and killed the ferocious beast at the critical moment. Brother Chu, why are all the gauze wrapped around your body broken and falling off? Looking at the pile of rags under Chu Bei's wheelchair, Xiaohe reacted with a puzzled look on her face. Chu Bei's expression froze. After hesitating for a moment, he hurriedly said, maybe it was caused by the aftermath of the force that saved you. Then I'll bandage you again later, Xiaohe said very seriously. Young friend, I originally wanted to give you a beast feast, but now it seems that we can only wait for the next opportunity. The village man patted Chu Bei's shoulder and began to clean up the flesh on the ground. Chapter 706. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, Chu Bei had been in this small mountain village for 3 months. He was still sitting in a wheelchair. Only his head could move, and the energy in his body could not be mobilized. Every day, Xiaohe pushed and served him. He did not know when it started, but he even forgot his identity as the owner of the All-Heaven shop and really began to integrate into the life of this mountain village. Although the mountain village was remote, it was quiet. In addition, the village was simple and the villagers got along very warmly and harmoniously, giving Chu Bei a sense of home. Including the children and old women, there were 308 people in this village. In 3 months, Chu Bei had met all of them face to face and could call out each of their names. As for what he did every day, it was nothing more than telling the village children stories about the outside world. Sometimes, some adults would come to listen, but they would just laugh it off. Big Brother Chu, where did all these stories come from? Is the outside world really so big? And those immortals you mentioned, can they really destroy our broken Qi mountain with a single thought? Xiaohe's mouth was wide open, and her little face was full of shock. The eyes of the group of children sitting around Chu Bei shone brightly. They supported their chins with their hands and stared at Chu Bei excitedly. If you believe it, it's true. If you don't, it's false. Chu Bei glanced at Xiaohe and the group of children and pretended to be profound. Thud, thud, thud. Bandits are coming. Everyone, pick up your weapons. At this moment, there was a rush of horse hooves in the distance, followed by the frightened screams of the villagers. Looking over, in the direction of the village entrance, a black shadow was quickly approaching, bringing up a cloud of dust. After a while, the black shadow appeared in an open space at the entrance of the mountain village. As for the burly men in the village, They all picked up their hoes and sickles and gathered together. "Tsk, tsk, I didn't expect a mountain village to be hidden here. Haha, it seems that we're going to make a fortune again." Among the bandits, the leader was a stocky one-eyed man. There were several knife scars on his face, hands, and back. Obviously, he had experienced many fierce battles. Behind him, there were close to 30 bandits. All of them held large machetes in their hands and looked ferocious. "Our village is very poor. Please let us go." A burly man from the village stepped forward and looked at the one-eyed man in the lead with pleading eyes. "Do you think I'll pity you?" The one-eyed man in the lead grinned and sneered. He suddenly waved the machete in his hand, creating a sonic boom. With that, the one-eyed man waved his hand at the bandits behind him. The bandit who received the order immediately dismounted and rushed towards the burly villager. At the same time, the bandit waved the machete in his hand. In a few breaths, he had already arrived in front of the burly man and slashed at him. The villager's face suddenly changed, and he hurriedly raised his hoe to block. However, these bandits were obviously well-trained, and the strength in their hands was not something the villagers could compare with. With a bang, the machete in his hand knocked away the hoe in the village man's hand. Chila! The sharp tip of the machete cut across the burly man's chest, instantly creating a shocking wound. Blood flowed out. Under the huge impact, the burly man flew out as if he had been hit by a ferocious beast. He landed heavily on the ground. His face was pale, and he howled in pain. Blood stained the ground. "Deshu! Father!" A group of villagers hurriedly ran to the unconscious burly man and took out all kinds of bandages to stop his bleeding. Among these people, a 6 or 7-year-old chubby boy cried the most sadly. His eyes were red and swollen. "You are all bad people. You will be punished by the Celestial King and Celestial Emperor. They can kill you with just a thought." The chubby boy clenched his fists and stared at the bandits fiercely. "What Celestial King and Celestial Emperor? What nonsense!" The one-eyed man in the lead looked at the chubby boy with contempt. He waved to the 30 bandits behind him and said coldly, "Kill them all. Leave no one alive." Hearing the one-eyed man's words, the faces of the villagers turned gray. Fear appeared in their eyes. These bandits were very efficient. After receiving the one-eyed man's order, they did not hesitate at all. They immediately dismounted from their horses and charged at the villagers with machetes. Instantly, the villagers screamed in fear. Among them were the excited cries of the bandits and the painful howls of the villagers. As the machetes in the hands of the bandits fell, more and more villagers fell. Blood gathered into a river and dyed the ground red. Fresh lives were turned into corpses. Some of them still had their eyes open, and their eyes were filled with hatred and anger towards the bandits. In the process of this massacre, there were also villagers who held sickles to resist. However, they were no match for these bandits who had been walking on the edge of the blade all year round. They were killed in a single blow. In the small mountain village, there were endless screams. The bandits slaughtered crazily. Their faces were filled with excitement, and their eyes were bloodthirsty. They ignored the villagers' pleas for mercy and swung their machetes again and again. The machetes were covered in blood. "None of you will have a good ending." The villagers fled in panic and screamed angrily. However, they could not get rid of the machetes in the hands of the bandits who caught up with them. "Big fool!" Looking at the big and tall corpse lying on the ground, Xiaohe cried. However, she did not forget to push the wheelchair and tried her best to escape. Finally, a bandit targeted Xiaohe after killing an old woman. He caught up with her in a few steps. In the laughter of cold in the forest, he raised his machete and swung it down. Xiaohe fell into a pool of blood. The wheelchair was also kicked down by the bandit. "Brother Chu." Xiaohe's face became paler. Her white dress was cut open from the back. Blood flowed from the big wound and dyed Chu Bei's body. Even at this time, her hands were still firmly grasping the wheelchair's handle and did not let go. As time went by, more and more villagers fell into the pool of blood. After a while, they died. The air was filled with the pungent smell of blood. It was nauseating. Gradually, the open space became quiet. As far as the eye could see, the villagers had all fallen. Only a few were dying. They were not far from death. Boss, it's all done. A bandit licked the blood on his machete. After kicking away the old woman he had just killed, he put away his machete and looked at the one-eyed man who was the leader. There is still a fish that escaped the net. A paralyzed good-for-nothing. A bandit in red pointed his machete at Chubei and said to the other bandits, "Then what are you waiting for? Don't tell me you pity him?" Another bandit laughed and said, "He is under my machete. There is no such thing as pity." The bandit in red laughed. However, just as he was about to swing his machete and meet Chubei's eyes, his body inexplicably shivered and a chill rose. Chapter 707. He had killed no less than 100 people, but he had never seen anyone who was as calm as Chubei before death. There was no fear on his face, and he was incomparably calm. He was so calm that he could not describe it. Lin Fan looked at him quietly. There was no anger in his eyes. There was only an indescribable indifference, as if he was already dead. "Why aren't you attacking?" The one-eyed leader on the horse said coldly. Hearing the leader's words, the bandit in red came back to his senses. He glared at Chubei fiercely and said, "Damn it, what's with that look?" After saying that, the bandit in red swung his knife at Chubei. Clang! However, just as the blade in the red-clothed bandit's hand was about to land on Chubei's neck, there was a clear clang. The machete seemed to have been hit by an invisible shockwave and shattered into thousands of pieces. The next moment, before the bandit in red could react, the invisible shockwave engulfed his body and turned his clothes into a bloody mess. What's going on? Why did Crimson Nine die all of a sudden? What happened to him? Witnessing this scene, all the bandits were stunned. Their eyes widened as they stared at the bloody mess on the ground. Their eyes were filled with fear of the unknown. Even the one-eyed leader unsheathed the knife at his waist. He was extremely vigilant. One of them is related to that paralyzed trash. Yes, it must be him. Crimson Nine wanted to kill him just now. He knows sorcery. He killed Crimson Nine. Who's going to avenge Crimson Nine? His sorcery can only be used once. The bandits focused their attention on Chubei. Their suspicions were mixed with hatred, but no one dared to step forward. "All of you, attack together," the one-eyed leader said coldly as he glanced at the bandits closest to Chubei. The 6 bandits who received the one-eyed man's order looked at each other. After communicating with their eyes, they walked toward Chubei with their knives in hand. "Kill. Avenge Crimson Nine." 6 bandits surrounded Chubei. Amidst their shouts, they chopped down with their machetes. Bang! A similar scene played out again. Before the 6 bandits' machetes could even touch Chubei's body, it was as if they had come into contact with some kind of terrifying taboo. Under an invisible force, their bodies exploded one by one, turning into a rain of blood that filled the sky. Dead. Dead again. Something's wrong. That guy really knows sorcery. You can't go any further. This time, the fear on the faces of the bandits became even more apparent. Those who were slightly closer to Chubei could not help but take a few steps back. Retreat. The one-eyed man in the lead was obviously frightened. After glancing at Chubei again, he hesitated for a moment and made a gesture to retreat. Ta-ta-ta. Soon, the sound of horses galloping could be heard. The bandits turned around and left. Looking at the backs of these bandits, Chubei was expressionless. There was no anger, no roar, only an abnormal calmness. But when his gaze fell on the bloodless face of Xiaohe, there was an obvious change in his eyes, which were like stagnant water. Looking at the corpses around him, every detail of the past 3 months in the village appeared in his mind. Scenes kept flashing through his mind. In the end, Chubei closed his eyes and let the pungent smell of blood in the air linger at the tip of his nose. He let the blood on the ground soak into his body. It started to rain. Perhaps it was the mercy of the heavens, but the rain became heavier and heavier, causing landslides to occur. Rolling mud and stones poured down like a river, covering the corpses one after another. Spring went and autumn came. Chubei did not know how long he had been buried in the mud. He was still unable to mobilize his strength, and the system did not respond. As for his body, except for his neck and above, he could not move any part of his body. Until one day, "Mother, why did you stop?" This was a group of foxes. To be exact, a group of foxes that could speak human language. "There's the breath of a living creature below." The leading fox stretched out its claws and pointed at its feet. A living creature? Could it be a sleeping great demon? A little fat fox shrunk its neck. "Mother, let's go quickly. Otherwise, what if it breaks through the mud and eats us?" "Silly child, his breath is very weak. It's not even as strong as you." The leading fox smiled, then its tail danced as if it was accumulating power. Boom! The fox's tail fell to the ground, accompanied by a loud explosion, and a black shadow broke through the ground. "Mother, look, he's out. He's a human." Seeing Chu Bei's appearance, the little fox screamed out. The leading big fox was stunned, but soon calmed down. "We are the fiery fox clan of the Chi-Duan mountain range. Who are you? Why are you buried underground?" Chu Bei glanced at the foxes indifferently. There was no joy on his face, and his expression did not change at all. "Mother, he's mute." The little fat fox pointed at Chu Bei and said. Deep in the Chi-Duan mountain range, the expressionless Chu Bei's eyes suddenly twitched slightly. "What's going on? Intuition?" Chu Bei seemed to realize something and muttered. Inexplicably, he felt a pain in his heart. He was blown out of the ground by the fiery fox and was finally taken away by the other party's demonic arts. But before they could go far, the group of fiery fox encountered their natural enemy in the mountain. In the battle, Chu Bei witnessed the greatness of a mother's love. Even in the demon fox clan, in order to protect her child, a mother did not hesitate to use her life to delay her natural enemy, just to give her child enough time to escape. The leading fiery fox was brutally killed by its natural enemy, and the group of young fiery fox fled sobbing, leaving Chu Bei behind. Time passed, and the continents collided. Not long after, the Chi-Duan mountain disappeared. In the chaos, Chu Bei experienced one unfamiliar place after another. 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, the world changed. During these years, Chu Bei's body was still in the same condition. He had witnessed the killing of tens of millions of troops on the battlefield, witnessed the separation of families, witnessed the separation of life and death, and seen too much. Chaotic great heavens domain. In the 88th year since Chu Bei disappeared, Xiao Yin entered the immortal emperor realm, truly stepping into the great heavens domain and guarding the great heavens store. In the same year, Yi Fan, Chun Nan, Tang San, and Shi Hao also entered the immortal emperor realm and gathered in the great heavens store. Sun Wukong, Zhu Beiji, Golden Cicada, Sand Monk, and Ao Lai broke through at the same time, crossing the final hurdle and becoming immortal emperors. In the 89th year, the ancient dragon phoenix also broke through again, becoming the 12th immortal emperor after Chu Bei, Xiao Yin, and the others. Is there still no news of Master? In the great heavens store's main hall, a group of disciples gathered together. "No, but I still don't believe that Master has fallen." "That's right. With Master's divine abilities, forget about killing him. A trifling emperor artifact might not even be able to injure him. There will be a day when we can find Master." Xiao Yin, Yi Fan, Shi Hao, and the others' eyes were incomparably resolute. Chapter 708. Time passed in the blink of an eye. Chu Bei didn't know how long he had been drifting in this strange world. To him, time was meaningless. He was immortal, but he couldn't do anything. He could only watch everything he experienced. He couldn't participate. On this day, he drifted into a bamboo forest along with the wind. Unlike ordinary bamboo, the bamboo here was blood purple and every single one was thick and lush. At first, Chu Bei didn't recognize these bamboos because they were too big. Every single one of them was like a small mountain. When Chu Bei realized what was going on, he was truly surprised. It turned out that these bamboos weren't rooted in the soil, but grew in the sea. It was very strange. Looking closely, there were layers of purple seaweed floating below the bamboos. Every single strand looked like it was made of blue gold and flowed with brilliant divine light. What kind of world is this? Chu Bei looked around and murmured. The blue sea was boundless, and the purple bamboos were everywhere. The scene was magnificent and dense spiritual energy spread. It was really amazing. Whoosh! Just as Chu Bei was using his gaze to explore the bamboo forest on the sea, a huge wave suddenly appeared not far away. The blue waves surged violently, as if they had been split apart by a giant axe. The waves rolled to both sides, and the seawater surged. Amidst the frightening sound of the seawater, an incomparably huge shadow rose from the sea. It rode the wind and broke the waves, looking very mighty. Its giant horn was like a mountain, like a dragon, and like a phoenix. It carried with it a shocking Emperor Qi. A hint of surprise flashed across Chu Bei's eyes when he recognized the identity of this huge figure. An immortal Emperor realm primordial dragon phoenix. However, before Chu Bei could calm himself down, a ripple suddenly appeared in the calm space before a black-clothed man with a sword on his back slowly walked out from it. Another immortal emperor. Seeing the man in black and determining his cultivation level, Chu Bei's pupils shrank. The black-robed man and the ancient dragon phoenix exchanged glances and greeted each other. It was as if they had known each other for a long time. They didn't seem to notice Chu Bei's existence as they flew towards the depths of the bamboo forest. At this moment, Chu Bei suddenly discovered that his body had inexplicably moved along with his spiritual sense, and he was also moving towards the depths of the bamboo sea. In an instant, Chu Bei saw land in the central region of the bamboo sea. It was a land filled with the fragrance of flowers and the chirping of birds. A jade sea surrounded this place, and purple bamboo interweaved. At the center was an immortal island that floated in midair. White mists pervaded the air, and immortal energy rose. It was indescribably pure and holy. At this moment, there were already many people on the immortal island. There were men and women, old and young, but they were all very peaceful. There was no killing intent, nor were there any disputes. They all carried satisfied smiles as they chatted. There were numerous jade tables and chairs on the island, and all sorts of fruits and fine wine were placed on them. All of them were rare immortal treasures. The white mist flowed and submerged the kneecaps of these people. The immortal lotus bloomed and took root in the void. Whether it was the leaves or the flowers, they were all golden and contained Emperor Dao runes. On the immortal island, divine beasts could be seen everywhere. There was a 7-colored divine deer with a jade plate on its head, offering fruits to everyone. There was a white ape with Emperor Dao runes doing its job and pouring wine for everyone. Even the weakest divine beast had the strength of an immortal king. At a glance, this was more like a gathering of supreme experts. It was far away from the hustle and bustle of the mortal world and was peaceful. Looking at the people on the immortal island, Chu Bei's state of mind that had been calm for countless years was suddenly shattered. These immortal emperors on the island were the ones who were with him. Unfortunately, these people seemed to not notice Chu Bei's existence, or perhaps they just ignored him. Could it all be an illusion? Chu Bei sensed that something was wrong. No matter how loudly he shouted, the people on the immortal island wouldn't even look at him. He began to doubt whether what he saw was real or fake. Suddenly, above the bamboo sea, immortal clouds and auspicious light shone brightly. In the distant sky, a dazzling golden path extended rapidly and landed on the immortal island. Then, a hazy figure whose face couldn't be seen clearly appeared. He was silent, but there was a majestic aura around him as he walked on the dazzling path. Blue Spear Emperor. On the immortal island, a group of experts stood up to welcome him. The appearance of this figure caused a series of exclamations. Chu Bei's gaze was also fixed on this figure. The other party's aura fluctuation had actually entered the 9 stars immortal emperor realm. After this figure, the sky was inexplicably filled with raging flames. Then, several divine rainbows streaked across the sky like shooting stars. The light was so dazzling that it was difficult to open one's eyes. It must be the Inferno Emperor. Billions of years have passed, but he is still as naughty as a child. Someone on the immortal island laughed. In the next moment, a burst of laughter came from the raging flames. A red-haired old man appeared. He waved his hand and all the blazing flames disappeared. Then, he sat down on the immortal island. It's another 9 stars immortal emperor. Chu Bei glanced at the red-haired old man. After determining his cultivation level, he couldn't help but gasp. Even in the chaotic lands, 9 stars immortal emperors were already in the top 3 of the total immortal emperor rankings. They were supreme figures who were on par with the origin emperor. But here, Chu Bei actually saw 2 of them all at once. Where exactly is this place? Chu Bei couldn't calm down. Then, with a thought, his body actually moved again. Chu Bei came to the immortal island and even floated around these experts. However, no matter how he swayed in front of these experts, they didn't even look at him. At this point, he was completely sure that even 9 stars immortal emperors couldn't detect his presence. As he floated around these experts, Chu Bei realized that these experts gathered together to discuss the Tao of cultivation. These experts didn't forget to make some gestures as they discussed the Tao. A female immortal emperor stretched out her slender hand. Her fingertips glowed. With a whoosh, a seed shot out. It took root and sprouted in the void, releasing an ancient and mysterious aura. It was a Tao seed. It evolved in the void, absorbed supreme power, and then released the aura of the great Tao. Another immortal emperor made a move. He shot out a bolt of lightning with a flick of his finger. It was simple and direct. The thunder rumbled and turned into a pagoda. It hummed faintly and wrapped around endless stars. On the immortal Tao, various emperor techniques evolved layer by layer. A group of experts discussed the Tao and exchanged pointers. During this process, Chu Bei continued to observe, and his expression changed continuously. Every expert seemed to represent a different cultivation system from a different time and space. Each of them had their own mysteries, causing Chu Bei to be moved and shocked. Perhaps because he was immersed in the past, Chu Bei didn't even realize that while he was observing the emperor Tao of these immortal emperors, the sealed energy in his body was slowly reconnecting with his divine consciousness. Chapter 709. As time passed, a total of 18 9 stars celestial emperors gathered on the island. This number completely shocked Chu Bei. The 18 9 stars celestial emperors formed a circle of their own, discussing the even more profound emperor's Tao. Chu Bei naturally joined this circle. He couldn't influence them, and they couldn't discover him. He became a listener, listening to the 9 stars celestial emperors talk about the emperor's Tao. But as he listened, Chu Bei's expression changed. His eyes were filled with deep shock and disbelief. They were talking about a supreme emperor. This supreme emperor's Tao was to prove one's Tao through commerce. It had millions of treasures and millions of emperor's Das. Chu Bei was stunned. Wasn't this so-called commerce very similar to the all-heavens commerce city that the system had given him? Using commerce to prove one's Tao, didn't the so-called treasures refer to the treasures of the all-heaven mall? But he was absolutely certain that the 18 9 stars celestial emperors weren't talking about him, because from what they said, the master of this emperor's Tao had long since broken through the 9 stars realm and stepped into an even higher, illusory realm. Chu Bei was puzzled. Perhaps this question could only be answered when the system woke up. Hum hum hum. Suddenly, amidst a strange buzzing sound, light runes appeared around Chu Bei. Everything in his line of sight began to crack. So we're not in the same space-time, and not in the same era. Chu Bei saw the river of time and space-time runes. Gradually, he came to understand that he and the Bamboo Sea Island had only coincidentally overlapped space-time, or it could be said that he had mistakenly entered the front end of the river of time. However, the power of time was something that even 9 stars celestial emperors couldn't detect. Whoosh! The sea churned, the bamboo forest bobbed, and the island gradually became illusory. The figures of the celestial emperors discussing Tao on the island became transparent and disappeared with laughter. Everything returned to normal. It was like a dream, but it was so real. Chu Bei continued to float in the sea, following the waves aimlessly. No one knew where he was going. The river of time surged. Just like that, Chu Bei didn't know how much time had passed before he accidentally entered another space-time. Just like the immortal islands he had encountered before, the immortal emperors he encountered this time were also discussing the Tao. There were 9 stars immortal emperors among them. They were pursuing a higher realm above the 9 stars. Time passed. Every 100,000 years, Chu Bei would enter such a space-time. Personally experiencing everything in that space-time would not affect the normal flow of that space-time. Even a 9-star celestial emperor would not be able to detect his presence. It wasn't until the 99th space-time that Chu Bei found that he could move his limbs again. He had successfully stood up. Although he still couldn't mobilize the power in his body, and the system had not awakened, he was happier than when he had received the reward of 200 drops of source heaven power. Where are these powerhouses? Chu Bei muttered to himself as he recalled the 9-star celestial emperors he had seen. Becoming a true immortal meant one could exist forever with heaven and earth, let alone a 9-star celestial emperor. At this realm, even if they killed each other, they should not have disappeared in the long river of time. Even if they had passed away, there should be ancient legends in the records of the great domain of the chaos heavens. However, the truth was that there was no information about these celestial emperors in the records of the great domain of the chaos heavens. Could it be related to the great catastrophe? Chu Bei seemed to recall something, and his pupils suddenly shrank. In the battle above high heavens, Celestial Emperor Yin Tian and Celestial Emperor Qian Song had mentioned the great catastrophe, but they were quite afraid and did not disclose it. The great domain of the chaos heavens. It had been 100,000 years since Chu Bei disappeared. In the past 100,000 years, the structure of the great domain of the chaos heavens had not changed much except for the great change in the sky market, which was one of the strongest 9 domains. However, there was an earth-shattering change in high heavens. On the list of forces, the all-heaven shop was still ranked first, but in fact, after 100,000 years, the number 1 force had become the floating island, which was ranked 33rd on the list of forces. All of this was because a mysterious transcendent force had found the floating island. No one knew the origin or details of this mysterious force, but it was true that it had sent a 9-star celestial emperor expert to the floating island. To be precise, in addition to the 9-star celestial emperor, there were 2 8-star celestial emperors, 3 7-star celestial emperors, and 5 6-star celestial emperors. It was said that when the 9-star celestial emperor appeared on the floating island, the sect master of the Dragon Spring sect and the celestial emperor of the Divine Path Mountain had both awakened from their seclusion and fought with the 9-star celestial emperor. However, both the sect master of the Dragon Spring sect and the celestial emperor of the Divine Path Mountain were seriously injured in the battle with the 9-star celestial emperor and entered seclusion again. It was precisely because of these powerful celestial emperors from the mysterious force that the floating island's influence skyrocketed, and its forces grew stronger and stronger. In the end, the floating island became the number 1 force in high heavens by many experts. Even after so long, there are still many people talking about the deeds of the sect master of the all-heaven shop. But then again, why did the mysterious force send a celestial emperor to the floating island? As far as I know, it has something to do with the death of the sect master of the all-heaven shop. To be more precise, it's for the missing emperor artifact. Even the Zero faction has given up on the emperor artifact. So why is this mysterious force still so persistent? What is it? Sky Market died because of it, and the sect master of the all-heaven shop died because of it. Ever since the sect master of the all-heaven shop died, the all-heaven shop has been silent for 100,000 years. Although his name is still at the top of the power rankings, there is almost no news about him anymore. Yes, the all-heaven shop refuses to participate in all the ceremonies in high heavens. Even the celestial emperor lecture from 5,000 years ago, the all-heaven shop didn't send any celestial emperors. In high heavens, many great beings from the emperor region were discussing the all-heaven shop. At the same time, in the emperor region of the all-heaven shop, within the main hall of the all-heaven shop, several figures sat in a circle. Other than Xiao Yin, Chen Nan, Tang San, Yi Fan, Shi Hao, Sun Wukong, Zhu Beiji, Golden Cicada, San Monk, Ao Lai, and Ancient Dragon Phoenix, there were 4 more people. 60,000 years ago, Hong Ming crossed the final hurdle and successfully stepped into the Celestial Emperor realm. 30,000 years ago, Linley stepped into the Celestial Emperor realm and came from the coiling dragon plane to the primal chaos domain. 20,000 years ago, Luo Feng stepped into the Celestial Emperor realm and came from the devouring star plane to the primal chaos domain. Right now, the 14 Celestial Emperors of the All-Heaven Shop were gathered together, discussing the results of the search for Chu Bei. None of them had any clues. Chapter 7:10. Could it be that Master has really fallen? It has been 100,000 years. If he's still alive, he must have returned by now. Xiao Yin let out a long sigh. As soon as he finished his sigh, his expression froze. Xiao Yin was not the only one. Chen Nan, Yi Fan, Tang San, and all the other celestial emperors in the Great Hall had a change in expression at this moment. Then, they all turned to look in the northwest direction at the same time. In the next moment, Xiao Yin, Chen Nan, and the other 14 celestial emperors appeared above the all-heaven shop at the same time. At this moment, a couple of figures appeared in the northwestern direction not far from the all-heaven shop. Their eyes landed on the spot where Xiao Yin, Chen Nan, and the rest were. Floating space, what's the meaning of this? Xiao Yin looked coldly at the red-robed man, standing in the middle of the several figures in the northwest direction. Is there still no news about your master? You know that the force behind me is very obsessed with that Emperor artifact. The floating space celestial emperor looked calmly at Xiao Yin. What the force behind you is obsessed with has nothing to do with us. We only care about our master. As for the Emperor artifact, you can look for it yourselves. Xiao Yan's voice was indifferent. In the past 100,000 years, you have come to the all-heaven shop more than 100 times for the Emperor artifact. Every time, you came alone. But why did you bring them with you this time? After saying that, Xiao Yin pointed at the 10 people on both sides of the floating space celestial emperor with a gloomy face. These 10 people were the 10 celestial emperors who had transcended the mysterious realm. Among them, there were 2 8-star celestial emperors, 3 7-star celestial emperors, and 5 6-star celestial emperors. Xiao Yin, they don't want to wait anymore. This time, it's different from before. I came alone. The floating space celestial emperor shook his head helplessly. What do you mean by that? Could it be that they want to attack us? Is it just because of the Emperor artifact? If they're really obsessed with it, why don't they look for it themselves? Sun Wukong waved the Jingu Bang in his hand and stared coldly at the floating space celestial emperor. Don't forget that Master saved your life in the Emperor Fallen Sea. Are you biting the hand that feeds you? The floating immortal emperor heaved a sigh of relief. What do you think I can stop them from doing? The floating sky immortal emperor mocked himself as if he was a puppet being manipulated by someone. We've already given you 100,000 years. Since you can't find it, we'll take over your territory. First of all, if we imprison you, perhaps your master will reappear with the Origin Tool catalog if he's not dead. Second of all, our people need a place to settle down when they return to the outside world. This territory of yours is not bad. At this moment, an 8-star celestial emperor behind the floating celestial emperor suddenly spoke. Although his voice was calm, it contained a terrifying celestial emperor's aura. If Master was here, you wouldn't dare to be so arrogant. Facing the pressure of an 8-star celestial emperor, Xiao Yin, Yi Fan, and the others were not afraid at all. Their auras began to rise. Although your master is strong, a 9-stars immortal emperor is not invincible. Cultivation is profound, and the Tao you think of is not the end. The 8-star celestial emperor seemed to know something. He glanced at Xiao Yin, Yi Fan, and the others and harumphed coldly. Look in the direction of the all-heavens shop's emperor province. That's the floating sky immortal emperor. And those mysterious celestial emperors. Why are they in the all-heaven shop's territory? Judging from their auras, the situation doesn't look good. Are the floating sky immortal emperor and the mysterious faction going to attack the all-heaven shop's celestial emperors? That can't be. 100,000 years ago, the all-heaven shop's guild master saved the floating sky immortal emperor. If it weren't for the all-heaven shop's guild master, the floating sky immortal emperor would have died in the formation in the Emperor Fallen Sea. If the floating sky immortal emperor led his people to attack Xiao Yin and the others now, wouldn't he be too heartless? Powerful auras burst forth from every corner of high heavens. Countless gazes were cast at the Emperor district of the All-Heavens shop. Their voices were filled with shock. The Origin region, the most powerful region in the Chaos Multiverse. The Origin Sky Pavilion's headquarters was located in the central region of the Origin region, and it was the #1 Emperor-grade faction in the Chaos Multiverse. This day still came. I wonder if the All-Heavens shop can survive this calamity. Impossible. The All-Heavens shop's guildmaster isn't here, and Sun Wukong and Xiao Yin are only 2-star celestial emperors. How can they fight against that mysterious faction? Speaking of which, how many transcending factions are there? Where do they exist? Murmurs echoed from the main halls of the Origin Sky Pavilion's peaks, carrying the aura of Emperor Dao. In a certain region in the northwest, on a sacred mountain shrouded in immortal mist and surrounded by a river of stars, a graceful figure stood on the mountain peak. Her eyes were lively, as if they had never been baptized by heaven and earth, an endless great Tao intertwined in them. It's been 100,000 years. Is the All-Heavens shop going to enter everyone's sight again? How interesting. The graceful woman seemed to be able to see through thousands of great regions with a single glance, and she understood all karma. A smile appeared on her exquisite and flawless features. In a certain region in the southeast, in a barren land, there was no sign of life. There were only a few fallen leaves on the grayish-brown ground, and it was cold and lonely. Desolation and emptiness coexisted, and there were a few huge rocks scattered on the ground, which looked like tombstones at first glance. The sky was dim, and a faint black mist added a gloomy feeling to this barren land. It was quiet and dead, and there was no sign of life. Is that Emperor artifact called the Origin Tool Manual? What exactly is it? In the depths of the boundless earth, a distant and low voice sounded. In a certain region in the extreme north. Splash! This was a boundless sea of blood. It seemed to be the convergence of the blood of a supreme expert after his death, and it carried a pungent, fishy smell. Amidst the soul-stirring splashing sound, a loud bang suddenly rang out from the sea of blood. The surface of the sea seemed to have been cut in half by a giant sword, and then a terrifying aura that surpassed that of an 8-star celestial emperor overflowed. Origin tool? What is that? A seemingly thin figure came to the surface of the sea from the depths of the sea, and a pair of cold eyes looked at the sky. Everything shook, and the long river of time collapsed. At this moment, even in the other most powerful regions, there were high-level celestial emperors who woke up from their seclusion, and they looked in the direction of the All-Heavens shop. On the other side, Chu Bei was still wandering aimlessly, like a walking corpse. As if there was some kind of guidance in his subconscious, he used 1,000 years to come to this space-time, to the immortal mountain that he was currently at. In front of him was a passage shrouded in sparkling light. Chu Bei walked forward, and the long river of time flowed behind him, carrying with it the sound of Emperor Dao. Chapter 7:11. When Chu Bei reached the end of the passage, he could not help but stop. When he saw everything in front of him, he was stunned and subconsciously took a deep breath. This was a terrifying battlefield. To be precise, it was a battlefield where the killing had ended and only corpses were left. The reason why Chu Bei was stunned was because every corpse on the battlefield was surrounded by Emperor Dao runes. Even though he did not know how long they had been dead, the corpses still had the aura of an immortal emperor lingering around them and could not be touched. Just as Chu Bei was in a daze, an earth-shattering roar rang out from the battlefield. In the next moment, Chu Bei only felt a terrifying aura rushing towards him. At this moment, Chu Bei seemed to be in the battlefield of the immortal emperors. In his eyes, there were many scenes of immortal emperors killing each other. It was the scene of the collapse of a great world. All kinds of supreme Emperor Dao techniques were decreasing as the number of corpses increased. Chu Bei walked through the battlefield. Every time he passed by a corpse, he would pause for a moment. This was because he could use the corpse to feel the attacks that the corpse's owner had suffered before. Bei squatted beside a corpse. Unlike the other corpses, this corpse gave him a very special feeling. Of course, its aura was far from that of the other corpses. What was even more special was that even though it had been dead for an unknown number of eras, Bei could not see its appearance clearly. Curious, Bei stretched out his hand and tried to push aside the hazy fog above the corpse's head to see the formation under the fog. But just as Bei's hand landed on the fog, there was a buzzing sound and Bei's body suddenly trembled. In an instant, the figure of a man in purple appeared in front of Bei. The man in purple was not very tall, but his golden hair was scattered. Only his eyes were not covered by the fog. His gaze was as sharp as cold lightning, inexplicably chilling. He's clearly dead, but he still has such power. Even such a person can die? Looking at the blurry figure in front of him, Bei's hair stood on end and he felt a sense of suffocation. He was absolutely certain that the figure in front of him was a supreme existence that surpassed 9 stars when he was alive. Chila. All of a sudden, this terrifying phantom entered the space between Bei's eyebrows. Bei's body trembled. In that instant, he saw what the phantom had looked like when it was alive. He stood in the void, surrounded by boundless starfields. It was as if many ancient universes were revolving around him, and he was standing at the center of the world. As his golden hair fluttered, the galaxies behind him were destroyed and dimmed until they disappeared. He seemed to be fighting against some kind of power that he couldn't see clearly. In the end, he was defeated and fled with heavy injuries. In the end, he fell on this battlefield. Where is the end of the Tao? Bei muttered to himself as he recalled everything that the person before him had experienced. His expression was a little absent-minded. Chi. Before Bei could ponder any further, strands of dim light flew out from the corpses in this mysterious and boundless battlefield. They were densely packed and swarmed towards Bei from all directions. What made Bei feel incredulous was that when these dim lights arrived in front of him, they actually lined up in an orderly manner and entered the space between his eyebrows in succession. Every dim light was a supreme emperor when they were alive. Bei experienced these emperors' lives again and again. Fortunately, this was not a cycle of reincarnation. Every emperor was different when they were alive. Although this was not what Bei wanted, and he was experiencing the emperor's lives uncontrollably, he did not feel bored. In fact, during this process, he even witnessed countless emperors' deaths. Vaguely, he seemed to have grasped the connection between thousands of emperors' deaths. Of course, this connection was very faint. Just when Bei thought he was about to grasp it, it quietly disappeared. Unknowingly, Bei closed his eyes and his body lay horizontally in the sky above this battlefield. Several gloomy balls of light floated around him. It was a very strange scene. If there was an outsider present, they would definitely be shocked. That was because with just the naked eye, they could see that Bei's body had become transparent. Every single bone was clearly visible, and they were emitting a beautiful fluorescent light. As for Bei himself, at this moment, he felt as if his spiritual will had already left his physical body and was roaming the worlds of the supreme emperors one after another. What he did not know was that the seal on his own power seemed to be slowly opening. The power fluctuations that leaked out from nothing were also rising bit by bit, becoming stronger and stronger. At the same time, the turbid area in his sea of consciousness slowly became clear. He could vaguely see branches and leaves swaying and releasing clear light. As for the floating black brick, it also began to form a strange phenomenon. Above it, there were 18 vague phantoms. Although he could not see the exact appearance of the 18 phantoms, he could roughly judge that they were 18 different mysterious objects. In the great domain of the Chaos Heavens, in the Emperor District of the All Heavens Shop, the atmosphere above the All Heavens Shop became increasingly strange and silent. Countless experts looked over from all directions, and sighs could be heard from time to time. Xiao Yin, Sun Wukong, Zhu Beiji, and the other celestial emperors of the All Heavens Shop stood side by side, coldly staring at the 8-star celestial emperor from the mysterious transcendent force opposite them. Since you can't hand over the origin tool manual and don't have the whereabouts of your master, there's nothing more to say. As the indifferent voice rang out, 130 drops of Genesis heaven power appeared around the 8-star celestial emperor's body. This amount of Genesis heaven power was comparable to celestial emperor Qiansong's. Sensing the Genesis heaven power pressuring them, the faces of Xiao Yin, Sun Wukong, and the other celestial emperors of the all-heaven shop instantly darkened. Although they were a little solemn, they were not afraid at all. Boom! Chen Nan, Yi Fan, and the other celestial emperors burst forth with celestial emperor power at the same time, jointly resisting the Genesis heaven power. A loud noise sounded, including the floating celestial emperor and the others. A boundless world battlefield formed in the starry sky above the all-heavens shop. Yi Fan was at the very front. With a wave of his right hand, lightning containing celestial emperor power descended. Emperor Dao aura surged, blasting murderously towards the 8-star celestial emperor. Above Chun Nan's head, a dazzling expanse appeared. Endless light particles gathered into celestial emperor tribulation light, releasing chi-chi sounds. In front of Shi Hao, a giant hand appeared. The 5 fingers moved, tearing apart the heavens, slapping towards the 8-star celestial emperor. Around Zhu Beiji, yellow sand danced about, every grain of yellow sand carrying Emperor Dao symbols. Tang San's hands moved, all types of mysterious artifacts carrying Emperor might smashing outwards. Behind Golden Cicada, a great Buddha appeared, golden light dazzling. Terrifying scriptures appeared from its mouth, interweaving together to form a Buddhist staff, directly descending towards the 8-star celestial emperor. Sand Monk took action, snowflakes fluttering about, freezing the heavens, chilliness pervading the air. Ao Lai took action, a scarlet-red expanse appeared. Within the red radiance, there were irregular scenes of ghosts weeping and gods howling. When the world battlefield formed, the 14 celestial emperors of the all-heaven shop took action at the same time, directly activating their most powerful attacks, attacking the 8-star celestial emperor together. Chapter 7:12. The strongest is only 2 stars. What's the point of having so many of them? A smiling voice drifted across the starry sky, following which, the 8-star immortal emperor waved the 130 drops of source heaven energy around him and directly met the attacks of Xiao Yan's group of 15. Rumble. 130 drops of Genesis heaven power exploded and turned into a terrifying energy wave. It instantly annihilated the attacks of the 14 people, including Xiao Yin and the others. Pooh, pooh, pooh. Xiao Yin and the others, the arch armor shattered as the Genesis heaven power invaded their bodies. Their faces turned pale as blood spurted from their mouths. Their breathing became chaotic as they fell to rock bottom. The outcome of the battle between Xiao Yin, Yi Fan, and the others against the 8-star celestial emperor had been decided in an instant. Even if the former had the advantage in numbers, the difference in cultivation base was too great. It was useless. Brother, don't you think it's too much to bully others like this? Just as the 8-star celestial emperor from the mysterious force was about to attack Xiao Yin, Yi Fan, and the others again, a deep and powerful voice sounded in the battlefield. Then, a figure appeared in front of Xiao Yin and the others. It's Celestial Emperor Lan Hui from the Genesis Heaven Pavilion. Why did he make a move? He has never interfered in the affairs of the major forces in high heavens. Perhaps Celestial Emperor Lan Hui can't stand it anymore. Celestial Emperor Lan Hui is also an 8-star Celestial Emperor. Since he has made a move, the crisis of the all-heaven shop must be resolved. The experts watching the battle exclaimed in unison when they recognized Celestial Emperor Lan Hui. Their faces were filled with shock and astonishment. The 8-star Celestial Emperor represented a mysterious transcendent force. Even some of the forces that were on good terms with the all-heaven shop did not dare to make a sound at this moment. However, they did not expect Celestial Emperor Lan Hui to intervene. What's the meaning of this? Are you trying to stop this Celestial Emperor? The 8-star Celestial Emperor from the mysterious force narrowed his eyes as he stared coldly at Celestial Emperor Lan Hui. It was as though he did not care about Celestial Emperor Lan Hui at all. If you need that Emperor artifact, go look for it yourself. What did this have to do with the All-Heavens shop? Don't you think it's shameful for you to deal with a group of celestial emperors who have just stepped into the Two Stars realm? Celestial Emperor Lan Hui snorted coldly. He did not have the respect that he should have when facing the so-called transcendent forces. My business has nothing to do with you. The mysterious 8-star Immortal Emperor glanced at Immortal Emperor Lan Hui and said, although the Origin Sky Pavilion is the strongest faction in the Great Regions, don't think that it's truly the strongest faction. We still have to fight when it's time to fight. Speak less. Immortal Emperor Lan Hui waved his hand, and several balls of Genesis Heaven power shot out from his body and hovered around him. As for the amount of Genesis Heaven power, it was the same as the mysterious faction's 8-star Immortal Emperor, 130 drops. Rumble. In an instant, a new world battlefield was formed. It was a battle between 8-star Immortal Emperors. Xiao Yin, Yi Fan, and the others shifted their gazes to Immortal Emperor Lan Hui as they watched the terrifying collision of Genesis Heaven energy. Their faces were filled with gratitude. Then, they looked at each other and immediately began to regulate their own injuries. How interesting. It actually turned into a battle between 8-star Immortal Emperors. Immortal Emperor Lan Hui really treats the All-Heavens shop well? Could it be that Immortal Emperor Lan Hui has a close relationship with the All-Heavens shop's sect master? Otherwise, why would he not hesitate to offend a transcendent faction? The surrounding cultivators began to discuss as they watched the terrifying battle between the two 8-star Immortal Emperors. Meanwhile, on the other side, Chu Bei's floating body suddenly fell from above the pile of Emperor corpses. With a loud bang, he created a deep pit on the ground. At this moment, the light hovering in front of Chu Bei had all disappeared. To be more precise, the light had entered Chu Bei's glabella and finally dissipated. In the deep pit, Chu Bei let out a long breath as if he had experienced thousands of reincarnations and awakened from a deep sleep. He slowly opened his eyes. It's like a dream, Chu Bei muttered softly as he felt the majestic power in his body that seemed to have been unlocked by a key and connected to his sea of consciousness. Host has gone to the otherworldly evil monarch plane and signed a contract with Junimosier. Host's reputation in the otherworldly evil monarch plane has reached 80. Side mission. Host has broken through the barrier between the otherworldly evil monarch plane and the chaos heavens. Hearing the system's voice in his mind, Chu Bei's lips curled into a smile. The system had also woken up. In the next moment, Chu Bei stepped into the wheel of time and space. Otherworldly evil monarch plane. Tianxiang Empire, June residence. In the depths of the residence, in a rather lavishly decorated room, a young man lay flat on a huge bed. This young man looked a little immature. His face was a little thin, and his eyes were a little slender. He gave off the feeling of a pretty boy. But at this moment, the young man's eyes were tightly shut, as if he had fainted and did not have any consciousness. Suddenly, the young man opened his eyes and instinctively slammed his right hand on the bed. But just as he was about to jump up, his arm went limp, as if it was too weak to support his body weight. With a bang, he fell back heavily. In the next moment, the young man let out a shrill cry of pain. I'm still alive. I'm actually not dead. The young man quickly recovered from the pain. As he muttered to himself, a look of joy and excitement appeared on his face. Clang! At this moment, the door opened. A graceful figure seemed to have heard the commotion and hurriedly ran in. Young master, you're awake. What was that sound just now? What happened to you? The person who ran into the room was a young girl of 15 or 16 years old. She was dressed in a maid's outfit, and her voice was a little timid. Young master? Who are you? What's going on? Hearing the voice, Junimo Xie stared at the maid in front of him, then looked around at the unfamiliar surroundings. At this moment, a wave of unfamiliar memories suddenly rushed up from the bottom of his heart. Pieces of unfamiliar information surged into his mind like a tide. In an instant, Junimo Xie felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He was stunned. Have I possessed a body and been reborn? And it's a completely unfamiliar world. Have I reincarnated without drinking Granny Meng's soup? Or have I reincarnated in someone else's body? Junimo Xie came in front of the mirror and stared blankly at the face he had seen for the first time in a trance. For a long time, he did not move, as if he had lost his soul. "Young master, are you all right?" But just as the young maid reached out her hand and waved it in front of Junimo Xie's eyes, he suddenly cried out in ecstasy. "Haha, indeed, good people have good karma. Although I can't figure out what's going on, I'm still alive. I must have accumulated a lot of good karma in my previous life, which moved the heavens and gave me the opportunity to come back from the dead." Junimo Xie's cry of surprise was like a madman's cry, which frightened the young maid. She trembled and hid to one side, her pretty big eyes staring at Junimo Xie in panic. Chapter 7:13. Young master, don't. Especially when Junimo Xie walked towards her. The girl's petite body was trembling, and her face was incomparably pale. She looked like a frightened little quail. Obviously, the previous Junimo Xie was like a nightmare in the eyes of the girl. What kind of person did the previous owner of my body become? Looking at the frightened appearance of the girl, Junimo Xie shook his head and no longer paid attention to the girl. Instead, he composed himself and began to examine the condition of his body. However, this examination left Junimo Xie dumbfounded. His meridians were stagnant, his muscles were loose, his joints were stiff, and there were many injuries on his ribs. It could be said that this body was simply a waste. It was extremely bad. If I want to recover to the peak of my previous life, it would be impossible without 8 to 10 years. Junimo Xie sighed and sat on the edge of the bed. In his previous life, he was an assassin. Moreover, he was a super ace assassin who stood at the peak. Since his debut, he had never failed. His success rate was unparalleled. In less than 5 years, he had become the #1 assassin on the list of assassins. In addition to being the #1 assassin, his own bounty was also firmly at the top of the bounty list in his world. No one could shake it. No one dared to accept his bounty. No one could accept it because he was strong enough. He was a legend in the world of assassins. As the #1 assassin, Junimo Xie had his own style of doing things. But because of his style, the other assassins gave him the title of Evil Monarch. When Junimo Xie was still alive in his world, his name of Evil Monarch was a deterrent to all big and small forces. Although many people knew the name of Evil Monarch, almost no one knew what this #1 assassin looked like, whether it was a man or a woman. "Well, since I'm here, I'll just take it easy." After a long sigh, Junimo Xie accepted his body. At least he was glad that he didn't possess a woman's body. Moreover, this body had the same name as him. As for the Junimo Xie of the past, he was just a good-for-nothing who idled about, loved ease, hated work, and only ate while waiting for death to befall him. In short, he was a typical parasite with no value. As for Junimo Xie's background, his grandfather, Jun Zhantian, was the Blood Orchid Grand Duke of the Empire. He was also the #1 figure in the military. His father, Jun Wuhui, had once been an imperial great general. 10 years ago, he had died on the battlefield. His mother had died of depression 9 years ago. His 2 elder brothers, Junimo Yu and Junimo Cho, had died in a great battle 3 years ago. Her uncle, Jun Wu Yi, had also been seriously injured in the war 10 years ago. Although he had managed to survive, he had been paralyzed from the waist down and had been reduced to a cripple. The Jun family was one of the largest families in the Tianxiang Empire. However, it was a pity that Junimo Xie was the only one left in his generation. Moreover, he was a debauchee who didn't seek to improve himself and only knew how to idle around. Actually, if I think about it, being a second generation isn't that bad. Junimo Xie suddenly grinned as he recalled the various deeds of his previous master. However, just as he finished muttering to himself, a cold voice sounded from outside the door. "Hedonistic second generation? It seems that our Jun family is going to decline in your hands. You are a disgrace to the Jun family." A wheelchair entered the room, and a thin, middle-aged man in his 30s was sitting on it. He was leaning against a wooden support, and his legs were covered with a thick layer of satin. His pair of turbid and clear eyes were coldly staring at Junimo Xie. His eyebrows were like swords, and naturally carried an inexplicable cold and murderous aura. This servant will take her leave. Seeing the thin, middle-aged man in the wheelchair, the young girl bowed respectfully and then trotted out of the room. Junimo Sie sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the middle-aged man who had come in. Although the other party was physically disabled, his eyebrows revealed a powerful aura. He must have been a decisive general who commanded thousands of soldiers and horses. He must have been an unyielding hero. Third uncle? Junimo Sie tried to recall the memories of his third uncle, Junwoo-yi, who was sitting in a wheelchair. Then, he tried to call out to him. In Junimo Sie's memory, Junwoo-yi was a useless person who was sitting in a wheelchair waiting for death to claim him. But at this moment, Junimo Sie could feel a murderous aura coming from the other party's body that even he was moved by. Junimo Sie stared at the middle-aged man in the wheelchair, and his face was full of astonishment. The other party's murderous aura was unique to an iron-blooded soldier who had been through hundreds of battles all year round. He had fought his way through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. It was like a peerless sword that would never be buried by dust even if it was broken. It exuded an aggressive aura. However, because of the wheelchair's existence, this peerless sword was hidden in its scabbard. "Do you still see me as your third uncle?" Junwoo-yi glanced at Junimo Sie and coldly snorted. "You still have the older generation to protect you. But when they're gone, how will you survive? The other families will give you some face if the older generation is still around. But when they're gone, you'll be nothing but a waste in their eyes." Junimo Sie didn't take Junwoo-yi's words to heart. He knew that Junwoo-yi was actually concerned about him, and that Junimo Sie had expected better from him. "Third uncle, even if the older generation is gone, won't you still be protecting me?" Junimo Sie asked. "Are you mocking me?" Junwoo-yi's face darkened. "Third uncle, I have a way to cure your legs." Junimo Sie pointed at Junwoo-yi's legs. Hearing Junimo Sie's words, Junwoo-yi shook his head and turned his wheelchair to leave. Obviously, he still thought that Junimo Sie was making fun of him. Looking at Junwoo-yi's lonely back, Junimo Sie wanted to say something, but hesitated. He wanted to chase after him to say something, but in the end, he didn't take a step. He could indeed cure Junwoo-yi's legs, but with the cultivation of his previous life, he couldn't do it with his current body. Judging from the situation of his current body, it would take him at least 10 years to reach the level where he could cure Junwoo-yi's legs. This was also the reason why he didn't catch up with Junwoo-yi. After all, it would take him at least 10 years. If it wasn't for this terrible body, I wouldn't have to start from scratch. Junimo Sie let out a long sigh. But just as he was sighing, a huge boom rang out above his head. Then, a pitch-black circular gap appeared. Looking at the purple-clothed man slowly falling from the gap, Junimo Sie's pupils suddenly shrank. His mouth opened wide, and his eyes were filled with astonishment. Chapter 7:14. You, who are you? Junimo Sie came back to his senses and subconsciously swallowed his saliva as he stared blankly at the man in purple. This man in purple was Chu Bei from the Xinhuang continent. While Junimo Sie was sizing up Chu Bei was also sizing up Junimo Sie. After a few seconds, Chu Bei seemed to recognize Junimo Sie, and the corners of his mouth curved into a smile. Junimo Sie looked at Chu Bei's malicious smile and inexplicably shivered. This was a feeling he had never felt in his previous life, even when facing hundreds of assassins. "Who the hell are you? What do you want to do?" Junimo Sie looked at Chu Bei with great vigilance, and then looked at the black hole that hadn't disappeared yet. His body tensed up, and he stepped back. "Little guy, is this body still used to it?" Chu Bei suddenly opened his mouth with a playful tone. "You, how did you know?" Junimo Sie heard Chu Bei's words, and he felt as if he was facing a great enemy. "Don't be nervous." Chu Bei looked at Junimo Sie with a smile. "You're still alive, and it's not a coincidence, and it's not because you've accumulated good karma in your previous life. Then what is it?" Junimo Sie asked, and his tensed body relaxed, but his eyes were filled with confusion. "It was I who brought you to this world in passing." Chu Bei coughed softly and lied in an incomparably calm manner. What? You brought me back from the dead and brought me to this strange world. Junimo Xie's face was full of surprise, and he exclaimed, In your previous life, you were called the evil monarch. What is evil? It is said that you killed an evil trafficker, but couldn't find the victim. So, you had no choice but to ask for a copper coin from the little girl who was being trafficked. You also said that you had never done business without a reward, and that there would be no exception. What is evil? There was once when you cleared out all the paper towels in the latrine. When the old martial arts teacher who taught you when to squat, he found that there was no paper towel and asked him to send some paper towels over. In the end, you asked him for 50 taels of gold as a reward. Why would he submit? It's because you called all your fellow apprentices to the entrance of the latrine that day, and even invited a woman from the outside to visit. Stop talking. I believe you. Junimo Xie quickly came back to his senses as he listened to the man in front of him narrate the story of the evil monarch in his previous life. At this moment, he completely believed what the other party had said. Otherwise, how could the other party know what he had done in his previous life? Master, I know that there's always someone better than you out there. Just like you, with your ability to bring the dead back to life, you're definitely an existence that stands at the peak of the martial way. Junimo Xie had completely relaxed his state of mind. Facing Chu Bei, he no longer had the slightest bit of vigilance. With a flattering expression on his face, he said, But why can't you resurrect me on the spot? Why do you insist on living in this world? He even possessed a crippled body. This is a blessing, not a curse, Chu Bei said with a smile, and pointed a finger between Junimo Xie's eyebrows. In the next moment, Junimo Xie's body trembled, and a translucent ripple flew out from between his eyebrows. That was the spirit. To be precise, it was the spirit of Junimo Xie's previous life. Suddenly, the scene before Junimo Xie's eyes changed. In the blink of an eye, he followed Chu Bei and appeared in a vast starry sky. Chu Bei strode across the starry river, and Junimo Xie followed behind Chu Bei in the form of a spirit. You think that you've already stood at the peak of the strong in your previous life, but in reality, on the path of cultivation, you can't even be considered an ant. Chu Bei's indifferent voice fell. With a wave of his right hand, countless stars around them shifted positions, and a soul-stirring river of stars surged over with a monstrous aura. Rolling 9-colored lightning intertwined in the starry sky, and all kinds of gorgeous light exploded, extremely dazzling. Not only that, all kinds of strange phenomena appeared. There were ghosts crying and gods howling, fairies dancing in the sky, dragons soaring in the sky, and the evolution of the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers. Looking at the strange phenomena around him, Junimo Xie was speechless. His entire body froze, like a block of wood. Not to mention the memories of his current body, even in his previous life, he had never experienced such a scene. Inconceivable, unimaginable. Wong. At this time, with a buzzing sound, the vast starry sky disappeared, and Junimo Xie's spirit returned to his body. Looking at the environment in the room, Junimo Xie regained his senses. When he looked at Chu Bei again, his throat twitched. He knew that the scene he had just experienced was not an illusion. It was real. The strength of this purple-robed man was at a height that was far beyond his imagination. Do you want to reach this seat's height? Do you want to have this seat's methods? Chu Bei looked at Junimo Xie with a smile on his face. He was very satisfied with Junimo Xie's shocked expression. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Junimo Xie was stunned at first, but he quickly reacted and nodded heavily. Yes, of course. In his previous life, Junimo Xie was a person who pursued the peak of martial arts. Otherwise, he would not have become the #1 assassin in just 5 years. This seat is fated to accept you as a disciple. What do you think? Seeing Junimo Xie's attitude, Chu Bei went straight to the point. Hearing this, Junimo Xie was startled, but he quickly cupped his hands and replied, This disciple greets master. To become this seat's disciple, you need to do a short ceremony. Saying this, Chu Bei waved his right hand, and a proxy ring appeared above his palm. Disciple, drip a drop of blood into the ring? Yes, master. Junimosya looked at the proxy ring, and under the other's signal, bit his index finger and dripped a drop of blood into the ring. The host has successfully signed a first-level proxy Junimosya. A first-level proxy gift package has been issued. When the signing was completed, the system sound rang in Chubei's mind. Junimosya, since you've already addressed me as your master, then I'll give you a gift. Chubei opened the gift bag, which contained a sparkling and translucent pill. It smells so good. Junimosya took the pill and sniffed it. Then, he and Chubei glanced at each other before popping it into their mouths. Master, what did you feed your disciple? I seem to have mastered a magical energy. Junimosya opened his eyes wide. Puff, puff. The moment Junimosya finished eating the phantom beast pill, a little blue mist began to appear on the surface of his body, and his body began to change. Almost at the same time, a series of mechanical sounds rang in Chubei's mind. Contractor Junimosya, signed successfully. Master, my body has changed. Am I still human? Looking at his changing body, Junimosya swallowed his saliva and looked at Chubei in horror. At this moment, he had turned into a bird beast made of blue flames, with a wisp of red flames on top of his head. Chapter 7:15. Don't panic. Chubei calmly looked at Junimosya and said lightly, the fruit you ate earlier is called the Phantom Beast Pill. Now you have the ability of a Phantom Beast. As for this ability, you will have to explore it. With the improvement of your development, your strength will also undergo earth-shaking changes. As for your current form, it is called the Immortal Bird. It has a terrible recovery ability. In a fight, this form is almost invincible. Master, I feel the magic of this flame. It's amazing. Gradually, Junimosya seemed to have found the trick. With a thought, he switched between the Immortal Bird and the human form several times. During this process, he also deliberately cut his right arm in the human form, causing blood to flow. However, when he turned into the Immortal Bird, the blue flame instantly healed the wound, leaving no scar. Maybe it won't take 10 years. I can cure third uncle's leg injury now. After the initial control of the Phantom Beast pill, Junimosya seemed to have thought of something, and an eager expression appeared on his face. Master, I am going to find third uncle. Junimosya respectfully looked at Chubei. Let's go. I will accompany you. Chubei put his hands behind his back and smiled. June residence lobby. Jun Zhantian sat at the head of the table. Although he was over 60 years old, his hair and beard were still black and shiny, making him look like a man in his 40s. Stinking brat, it's one thing for you to fool around outside, but now you even dare to mock your third uncle? Do you know how many military exploits he had on the battlefield when he was your age? How many enemies he had beheaded? Seeing Junimosya come to the lobby, Jun Zhantian didn't even look at Chubei and shouted at Junimosya. His dignified face was full of anger. Jun Zhantian was born poor and became a general at a young age. He dominated the world and made the enemy soldiers of various countries tremble in fear. Not only was he excellent in civil and military strategy, but he was also one of the few Sky Xian experts in the Tianxiang Empire. His character was calm and determined. He had always been calm and collected. From a humble pauper to the current Blood Orchid Grand Duke, it took him less than 40 years. Although it was said that the times created heroes, looking at the entire history of the continent, there were very few of them. On the battlefield, Jun Zhantian didn't bat an eyelid in the face of the enemy's million-strong army. But he would fly into a rage whenever he saw his only surviving grandson. Jun Zhantian really couldn't figure it out. With his bloodline and high-pressure management, how could there be such a good-for-nothing among the younger generation? The grandson in front of him, whom he loved and hated at the same time, was neither proficient in literature nor martial arts. When he picked up a book, he fainted, and when he heard that he was practicing martial arts, he ran away. Other people's sons and nephews were either talented or had already entered the right path in their cultivation of Xian Qi. At the very least, they were at the 6th level or above. On the other hand, His precious grandson's Xian Qi cultivation was only at the pitiful second grade, and that was after he had spent countless treasures on him. The main reason why he was so angry today was that the other party had started to use Jun Wuyi's legs as an excuse. Thinking of this, Jun Zhantian's tyrannical aura became violent, and the anger in his eyes was about to burst out. "Father, it's not worth it to get angry over this kid." Seeing that Jun Zhantian was about to go berserk, Jun Wuyi quickly opened his mouth. Although he also hated iron for not becoming steel, he still didn't want to see Jun Imoxie get beaten up. "Grandfather, I didn't laugh at third uncle. I really can cure third uncle's legs," Jun Imoxie said. Hearing Jun Imoxie's words, Jun Wuyi's face became gloomy. He sighed and looked at Jun Zhantian. "Father, you should hit this kid hard." However, just as Jun Zhantian's fist was about to fall on Jun Imoxie's body, the latter's body unexpectedly turned into a blue flame. The flame surged and turned into a blue bird. This. Looking at Jun Imoxie, who had suddenly turned into a blue flame bird, Jun Zhantian's fist stopped in the air, and his face suddenly changed. His whole body seemed to have been hit by a bolt from the blue, and his face was full of confusion. Sitting in a wheelchair, Jun Wuyi was also the same. He looked at the blue flame bird in a daze, and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. His face was at a loss, and he looked like a clay sculpture. Jun Imoxie's change came too suddenly and caught them off guard. "What's going on?" Jun Zhantian and Jun Wuyi were dumbfounded. Their brains seemed to have lost the ability to think, and they stood motionless like wood, staring blankly at the scene in front of them. "Third uncle, grandfather, don't worry. I'm in the form of an immortal bird," Jun Imoxie's voice sounded, and the next moment, he spat out a blue flame from his mouth, and in a flash, it engulfed Jun Wuyi's legs. Seeing his legs being burned by the flame, Jun Zhantian's expression suddenly froze. But just as he was about to stimulate his Xian Qi to extinguish the flame, Jun Wuyi raised his hand to stop him. "Father, don't move. My legs are starting to feel, and I can feel the pain." Jun Wuyi's expression began to become excited, and his expression was incomparably excited. "I can feel that the energy in this flame is healing my legs that have been crippled for 10 years. "What? You can feel it?" Hearing Jun Wuyi's words, Jun Zhantian's face was full of astonishment, as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. Jun Wuyi nodded heavily. "This flame really has a miraculous effect." The blue flame burned, and the joy on Jun Wuyi's face became more and more intense. The expression in his eyes when he looked at Jun Imoxie also changed from disappointment to surprise, and then to gratification. After an unknown amount of time, with a bang, a tyrannical aura burst out from Jun Wuyi's body. His hands patted the wheelchair, and the wheelchair split open, and he stood up. Then, his feet stepped on the void, and he actually bounced a few meters away in the hall. "Haha, I never thought that I, Jun Wuyi, would be able to leave the wheelchair one day." Jun Wuyi cheerfully walked back to Jun Zhantian's side and tightly grasped the latter's arms, his body slightly trembling. "Father, your child is fine, really fine." "Well, I saw it. Your father saw it." Unknowingly, Jun Zhantian, who had remained calm in the face of the enemy's million-strong army, had become red-eyed. The murderous aura that had been on the battlefield for a long time had completely disappeared. What was left was a joyful expression that an old man should have when he saw that his child, who had been crippled for 10 years, could stand up again. "Imoxie, how did you do it? And what's the matter with this immortal bird?" After being happy, Jun Zhantian and Jun Wuyi recovered and looked at Jun Imoxie, their eyes full of confusion. In their eyes, Jun Imoxie was a complete debauchee waste. He couldn't study, and he couldn't practice martial arts, but he was proficient in eating, drinking, and gambling. However, after experiencing the scene just now, they found that Jun Imoxie wasn't exactly what they thought. Suddenly, they found that they couldn't see through Jun Imoxie. Chapter 7:16. Grandpa, third uncle, I don't want to hide it anymore. Jun Imoxie took a deep breath and looked up at a 45-degree angle. He sighed. "When I was 3 years old, I met a master who accepted me as his disciple. But because of the secret method I practiced, I couldn't show it in front of outsiders, so I could only cover it up by pretending to be a good-for-nothing. But recently, I succeeded in my cultivation, and my master finally allowed me to show my strength. Junimo sighed faintly at this point. Grandfather, third uncle, do you know how lonely Imosia has been all these years? Jun Zhantian and Jun Wu listened to Jun Imosia's words, and their eyes were full of regret, as if they regretted that they didn't see this grandson of theirs who had been enduring all this time. As for Chu Bei, the corners of his mouth twitched, and after glancing at Jun Imosia, he cursed in his heart. Imosia, Grandpa has wronged you all these years. Jun Zhantian stepped forward and hugged Jun Imosia, who had changed back to his normal appearance. Imosia, what is your real strength? Jun Wui asked. Master gave me the inheritance, and it can't be measured by the ordinary cultivation system. So, I don't know what level I am at now. Jun Imosia shook his head. Then let third uncle try it for you. Jun Wuyi's voice fell, and he punched towards Jun Imosia, and a tyrannical Xian Qi spurted out from the surface of his fist. Seeing this, Jun Imosia's eyes narrowed, and without the slightest hesitation, he directly used the ability of the mythical beast fruit to transform into the phoenix form and clawed forward. Bang! A low sound was heard. Jun Imosia, who had transformed into the phoenix form, was shaken back, but he didn't suffer the slightest injury. Gold Xian. Jun Wu retracted his fist and stared at Jun Imosia with a face full of astonishment. Wu, you're not joking. Imosia is a gold Xian. Jun Zhantian laughed like a madman when he saw Jun Wu solemnly nod his head. Heavens, you've finally opened your eyes. A 17-year-old gold Xian, the #1 person in the Tianxiang Empire, my Jun family has a successor. Jun Imosia looked at Jun Imosia again. After experiencing Jun Wuyi's punch, he truly felt the horror of this phantom beast pill. He had just swallowed it and hadn't even had the time to develop it. But he already possessed the strength of a gold Xian. Imosia, where's your master? All these years, he has trained you to be so outstanding. We must thank him properly. You wouldn't have your current strength and means if it weren't for him. And Wu Yi's leg wouldn't have healed either. Jun Zhantian seemed to have thought of something. So, he quickly opened his mouth to speak. Grandpa, the master I speak of is far away on the horizon, but he is right in front of us. Jun Imosia said. Jun Zhantian and Jun Wu stared blankly when they heard this. Then, their gazes fixed on Chu Bei's body, and their mouths opened wide. You are Imosia's master. Jun Zhantian's eyes were filled with shock as he swallowed his saliva. He simply couldn't connect this 20-year-old youth with Jun Imosia's master. He thought that the person who could teach Jun Imosia such a heaven-defying method must be an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years and hadn't cared about the affairs of the world. Chu Bei looked at Jun Zhantian and Jun Wu and nodded slightly. Third uncle, who was the one who injured your leg? Jun Imosia asked Jun Wu. Then, he looked at Jun Zhantian. Also, how did my parents die? Jun Imosia searched through the memories of the previous owner of his body, but couldn't find any answers to these two questions. Jun Zhantian and Jun Wu looked at each other when they heard Jun Imosia's question. After a short discussion, they shook their heads. Imosia, it would be better if you don't know with your current strength. Our enemies are too strong, too strong. Too strong? How strong are they? Jun Imosia asked. In front of them, my strength is nothing. If you want to know, then you must first enter the Earth Xian realm. Jun Zhantian still didn't answer Jun Imosia's question. Then, Jun Zhantian looked at Chu Bei and asked very politely, Excuse me for asking, but what is your strength? Jun Zhantian and Jun Wu were not the only ones who were curious. Jun Imosia also looked at Chu Bei. He was also curious about his cheap master's cultivation. In the Xin continent, Xian Qi was ranked from the 1st to the 9th level. Above the 9th level was the Silver Xian, followed by the Gold Xian, Jade Xian, Earth Xian, Sky Xian, and above the Sky Xian was the Spirit Xian. Above the Spirit Xian was the Supreme. Of course, There were even higher levels of cultivation above the supreme. When one Xian Qi reached the Earth Xian realm, they could extend their life with the help of Xian Qi. When one reached the Sky Xian realm, they could live for 150 to 200 years. If they could go one step further and reach the Spirit Xian realm, they could extend their life, but they couldn't live for more than 350 years. When one reached the Supreme Realm, it was possible to live for 500 years. As for the Supreme Realm, it was natural that they could live even longer. It was said that when one's cultivation reached a certain level, they could return to their youth. It was impossible to tell their true age from their appearance. Judging from Chu Bei's methods, Jun Zhantian naturally didn't think that the other party was really a youth in his 20s. He must have reached the realm of returning to his youth. As for how strong he was, Jun Zhantian didn't know. At least with his Sky Xian realm strength, he couldn't return to his youth. My cultivation? Without a comparison, I don't know. Chu Bei smiled knowingly. He didn't deliberately want to be mysterious. This was indeed the truth. Hearing this, Jun Zhantian and Jun Wuyi looked at each other and didn't ask any more questions. They obviously thought that this question was Chu Bei's taboo. Ta-ta-ta. Just as Jun Zhantian was preparing to entertain Chu Bei, the sound of hurried footsteps came from outside the hall. Then, a panicked soldier ran in, gasping for breath. Don't you see that there are guests here? How can you lose your composure like this? Jun Zhantian looked at the soldier who ran in and shouted, Master, something big has happened outside. The sky is falling. The soldier took a deep breath and said quickly, Say it in one breath. Jun Zhantian frowned. The Xian beast tide is coming. A large number of Xian beasts are running out of Tian Fa forest. They are attacking and destroying the city like crazy. It's chaotic outside. The soldier said anxiously, What? The Xian beast tide? Our Tianxiang Empire has never had anything to do with the Xian beasts of Tian Fa forest. How can they invade us? Come, let's go out and take a look. Just as he shouted, Jun Zhantian's Xian Qi burst out, and he stepped out of the hall. His speed was extremely fast, and Jun Wuyi followed closely behind. Master Wei, how can we miss the fun? Jun Emosia looked at Chu Bei, but before he could finish speaking, Chu Bei interrupted him. Then, he waved his sleeve and disappeared from the hall. Chapter 717. All kinds of terrified screams could be heard in the Tianxiang Empire's imperial city at this moment. The originally peaceful streets were now filled with people who were fleeing with big and small bags on their backs. Among them, there were also soldiers in exquisite armor who were running towards the easternmost side of the street. Jun Zhantian's speed was very fast. Every time he overtook an army, the leader of the army would salute him respectfully. Jun Zhantian arrived at the border between the Tianxiang Empire and the Tian Fa forest in less than a quarter of an hour. Rumble. As far as the eye could see, countless Xian beasts were madly swarming towards the human domain from the Tian Fa forest. It was a black mass of beasts. They seemed to have received some kind of order. Their roars shook the sky, and the earth shook violently. Groups of capable soldiers were holding spears in one hand and shields in the other at the edge of the imperial city. They were resisting the Xian beasts without fear of death. Look, General Jun is here. General Jun is here. These Xian beasts won't be a problem. The soldiers who were desperately resisting the Xian beasts cheered excitedly when they saw Jun Zhantian arrive. It seemed as if they had found their savior. Bang! Jun Zhantian soared into the sky, and a tyrannical aura burst out. He appeared directly in the middle of the Xian beast's army. Jun Zhantian was like a fierce tiger in a flock of sheep. Several Xian beasts' bodies exploded with each punch and turned into piles of minced meat. Bang! 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 Perhaps they were afraid of Jun Zhantian's methods. These intelligent Xian beasts began to avoid Jun Zhantian and took a detour towards the imperial city. Look, His Majesty has also arrived. The Emperor of the Tianxiang Empire had also arrived at the edge of the imperial city. His face was full of worry. General Dugu has also joined the battle. The soldiers became more and more excited with the arrival of more and more experts from the imperial city. Their morale soared. Third Uncle Wu you? How did your legs recover? At this time, a somewhat playful girl of 15 or 16 years old came to Jun Wuyi's side. Her mouth was wide open, and her finger was pointing at Jun Wuyi's legs. Her face was full of astonishment. Xiaoyi, third uncle will explain it to you in a while. Jun Wuyi rubbed Dugu Xiaoyi's head and jumped into the battlefield. Scum of the Jun family, what are you doing here? Aren't you afraid that those Xin beasts will eat you? Dugu Xiaoyi looked at Jun Mo Xie with a face full of disdain. She then looked at Chu Bei and said, "This person looks very unfamiliar. Is he the debauchee you just made friends with?" Jun Mo Xie was about to get angry when he heard Dugu Xiaoyi's words. But he was startled by Chu Bei's words. "Don't be angry. This is one of your 8 future wives," Chu Bei said with a smile. "What are you talking about? Bah, why would I, Dugu Xiaoyi, marry this debauchee? Even if I were to go blind and break my leg, it would still be impossible. One of the 8 wives? A toad still wants to eat swan meat." Dugu Xiaoyi glared fiercely at Chu Bei. Her face was filled with anger, as if Chu Bei's words were a great humiliation to her. "Master, are you telling the truth?" Jun Mo Xie took a deep breath and said, "This little girl looks pretty good. If what you say is true, then this disciple will have to teach her a good lesson in the future, so that she won't dare to be rude to you again. Scum of the Jun family, if you dare to speak nonsense again, I will cut off your tongue." Dugu Xiaoyi drew a thin sword from her waist and waved it in front of Jun Mo Xie's face. Jun Mo Xie smiled and no longer paid attention to Dugu Xiaoyi. Instead, he looked at the battlefield. Roar! The invasion of the Xin beasts began to slow down as more and more experts joined the battle. More and more Xin beasts were killed by the experts. "Elder Jun, do you know what's going on? Why are these Xin beasts invading my Tianxiang Empire?" Tianxiang's emperor looked at the incomparably brave Jun Zhantian on the battlefield and asked, "Your Majesty, I'm afraid you don't know. It's not just our Tianxiang Empire. All the empires bordering the Tian Fa forest have been invaded by the Xin beasts." Jun Zhantian hadn't spoken when a warrior replied, "What? This is a full-scale disaster. Is the Tian Fa forest crazy? Do they want to declare war on the entire human race?" Tianxiang's emperor frowned deeply. "The Xin beasts won't stop if you don't hand over our Tian Fa emperor." At this moment, a vigorous voice resounded like thunder. The next moment, a 5-meter-tall strong figure appeared on the battlefield. He was in human form, but his whole body was covered with exuberant hair. Beast King Big Bear, Jun Zhantian, Dugu Shang, and the other experts of the imperial city were startled when they saw the appearance of the robust figure. They were full of astonishment. The moment Big Bear appeared on the battlefield, the crazy Xin beasts prostrated themselves on the ground as if they were kowtowing to him. "Bear King, are you the one who instructed them to invade our human territory?" Jun Zhantian and the other warriors looked at Big Bear with a dignified expression. Big Bear was one of the 12 beast kings of Tian Fa forest. He was a genuine great master. In their Tianxiang imperial city, the strongest person was only a Sky Xin expert. In the eyes of a great master, this didn't constitute any threat. "When you hand over our emperor, we will withdraw our troops." Big Bear's voice was cold. "Tian Fa emperor? How could it be in our human territory?" Jun Zhantian questioned. "You'll have to ask the Shuehun Manor." Big Bear shouted coldly. His voice was filled with monstrous anger. "Since it's the Shuehun Manor's matter, you should have just gone to them. Why did you invade our Tianxiang imperial city?" Jun Zhantian was dissatisfied. "This is the matter of the entire human race." Big Bear's body erupted with a terrifying aura, shaking the void and making a chi-chi sound. "You humans have been looking down on our Tian Fa forest for the past few years. Now, you even dare to have ideas about our emperor. If she hadn't failed to break through and was in a weakened state, how could you have succeeded?" Big Bear's voice was filled with anger as he punched out. Suddenly, a terrifying Xian Qi rushed out, shaking a wave of Tianxiang imperial city soldiers and sending them flying. They spat out blood from their mouths. "Big Bear, You've gone too far. You can't afford to offend the Shui Hun Manor, so you're venting your anger on us? Jun Tian clenched his fists as his aura began to condense. Do you think the Shui Hun Manor is in a good situation? If you can't see the Emperor, then all of humanity will be destroyed. Big Bear's eyes flashed with killing intent as he continued to attack, causing a large number of soldiers to die. Do you really think we're soft persimmons? Jun Tian pulled out his sword. Old man Jun, don't be impulsive. This is a great master. Dugu Shang quickly restrained Jun Tian from attacking. A mere Sky Xin expert is nothing but an ant. Big Bear looked at Jun Tian with disdain. His feet stepped into the void, and he turned into a divine rainbow. Carrying a terrifying Xin Qi, he bombarded Jun Tian. Chapter 718. Not good. Old General Jun is in danger. On the battlefield, the pupils of all the generals contracted rapidly. Big Bear was very fast, arriving in front of Jun Tian in almost an instant. However, just as Big Bear's huge fist was about to land on Jun Tian's chest, everyone heard a crisp cracking sound. Big Bear's figure inexplicably stopped. The space where he was standing had actually split open with a long and thin gap. At this moment, whether it was Big Bear or Jun Tian, it was as if they were suddenly imprisoned by a force. What's going on? Looking at the scene on the battlefield, all the generals' faces were filled with confusion. The intelligent high-level Xin beasts crawling on the ground widened their eyes, their expressions filled with confusion. Humans and Nemesis Forest are on the same side. Your current actions are too extreme. Suddenly, a calm voice sounded in everyone's ears. Bang! Following the sound of this voice, the imprisoning force in the space where Big Bear and Jun Tian were in disappeared. The two of them flew out inexplicably at the same time. Who is it? Big Bear's vigorous shout reverberated between heaven and earth. Just as everyone was looking around to find the person who had spoken, a man in purple appeared out of thin air above the battlefield. Who is he? Could it be that he was the one who spoke just now? He was the one who saved old General Jun. Is he the supreme expert of our human race? The gazes of all the generals were fixed on Chu Bei's body. They discussed animatedly, guessing Chu Bei's identity. Scum of the Jun family. He's not that. Recognizing the man in purple above the battlefield, Dugu Shaoi stuttered incoherently. She stammered for a long time, unable to form a complete sentence. You still know that humans and Nemesis Forest are on the same side. Then take a look at what you're doing now. You actually dared to kidnap His Majesty when he was weak after failing to break through. I don't even know what you're planning. Big Bear's anger soared to the heavens. Once he finished speaking, he condensed a terrifying aura and launched a tyrannical attack at Chu Bei. Bang! Unfortunately, in front of Chu Bei, Big Bear was really no different from an ant. Before he could get within 10 meters of Chu Bei, he was sent flying by a force. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his face turned pale. During this entire process, Chu Bei did not even raise his eyes. It could be said that he did not move at all. Big Bear is injured. He's one of the 12 beast kings of the Nemesis Forest, a supreme being expert. Seeing this scene, all the battle generals were dumbstruck. Just who is this purple-clothed man? The generals looked at Chu Bei with even more curiosity and respect. I will give you justice for what you did to the Beast Emperor of Tian Fa. Chu Bei did not pay attention to the discussion of the battle generals below. After glancing at Big Bear, he pointed a finger. Immediately, countless blue flames flew out from his fingertips. These blue flames surged and turned into hundreds and thousands of undying birds that flew toward the battlefield below. Wherever these undying birds passed, whether it was the heavily injured human soldiers or the Xin beasts of the Nemesis Forest, their injuries were all healed at a terrifying speed. This is too unbelievable. Is this even a human's ability? All right, they're all healed. Witnessing their dying companions being healed by the undying birds, the other soldiers and battle generals were all stunned at the same time. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would never have believed that there was someone in this world who had such remarkable abilities. Justice? How can you give us justice? We don't know if His Majesty is dead or alive. The longer this drags on, the greater the danger she'll be in. Big Bear glanced at the healed soldiers and Xian beasts below. After a flash of surprise, he looked at Chu Bei and spoke. Chu Bei did not pay attention to Big Bear. He only waved his sleeve, and a ripple instantly enveloped the entire battlefield. In the next moment, the Emperor of the Sky Incense, Jun Zhantian, Jun Wu Yi, Du Gushang, and the other generals, as well as Big Bear, felt a wave of dizziness in their heads. Then, everything in their line of sight changed. This is the territory of the Shui Hun Manor. He actually took us from the Tianxiang Imperial City to the Shui Hun Manor in an instant. This is not the ability of a great master. Could it be that he is in existence above the great master level? The battle generals came back to their senses. When they recognized their current location, they stared at Chu Bei with astonishment written all over their faces. Look below. 7 Xian Beast Kings. The Shui Hun Manor and the Nemesis Forest have already started an all-out war. Could it be that the Shui Hun Manor really took away the Emperor of Tianfa? Jun Zhantian, Du Gushang, and the other battle generals were floating in the air. When they saw the scene below, their pupils suddenly dilated. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, the outer area of the Shui Hun Manor had been turned into ruins. The intensity of the battle was far beyond what had happened in the Tianxiang Imperial City. Innumerable 7th and 8th level Xian beasts were fighting with the Shui Hun Manor's experts. Rivers of blood were flowing, and wails of grief could be heard everywhere. The most intense battle was between the 7 great masters of the human race and the 7 Xian beast kings of the Nemesis Forest. Blizzard Silver City's City Lord, Blizzard Supreme Han Feng Shui, Heaven's Equal Peaks Heaven-Seeking Supreme Emo Wen Tian, Cold Blood Supreme Lei Wu Bei, Shun Ci Empire's Life and Death Supreme Shichang Xiao, Blue Supreme Meng Hongqian, who lives in seclusion in the Blue Light Sea, Prairie Eagle God Solitary Falcon, Hurricane Sword God Feng Wanyun, Jun Zhantian and Du Gushang recognized the 7 great masters of the human race. They looked at each other and announced their identities. Snake King, do you really want to fight to the death? Heaven-seeking Supreme Emo Wen Tian looked at a woman with a graceful figure and shouted coldly, "This battle will only end when I see my elder sister." Snake King Green Hunter replied expressionlessly, "You insist that the Shui Hun Manor has kidnapped the Emperor of Tianfa. But you've searched every nook and cranny of the Shui Hun Manor, and you haven't found any trace of the Emperor of Tianfa." Cold Blood Master Lei Wu Bei said, "That's right. You people of the Nemesis Forest want to frame my Shui Hun Manor and use that as an excuse to invade the entire human race." The great elder of the Shui Hun Manor shouted. The complexions of the 7 Xian Beast Kings became extremely ugly when they heard this. Some of the Xian Beast Kings even transformed into their true forms. They opened their bloody mouths with ferocious expressions on their faces. "Since your Shui Hun Manor has nothing to do with this, then where is Li Tian? When he kidnapped my emperor, I even fought with him. But I wasn't a match for him. That's why he kidnapped my emperor." A spirit Xian Bi said, "Li Tian? That's ridiculous. That guy failed to cross his tribulation 3 years ago and died. How could a dead man kidnap the emperor of Tianfa? This reason is too absurd." "That's right. Everyone knows about Li Tian's death. Our human army won't be afraid of you if you insist on fighting to the death." The faces of the great masters of the human race became gloomy when they heard the spirit Xian Beast's words. Their anger soared to the heavens. Chapter 719. Li Tian is dead? How is that possible? The one who fought with me that day was definitely him. As he spoke, the divine profound realm Xian Beast in human form tore open his clothes and revealed his chest. There was a sunken palm print on his chest. The inside of the palm print was pitch black. "Isn't this the bloodthirsty palm of your Shui Hun Manor?" The divine profound realm Xian Beast pointed at his chest and shouted coldly. You're really unscrupulous in order to find a preposterous reason. The Shui Hun Manor's great elder's eyes narrowed as he spoke. The other great elders frowned as they looked at the palm print on the Xian beast's chest. In the next moment, he soared into the sky and attacked the Xian beast without holding back. Kill! Chase away these invading Xian beasts. After the great elder of the Shui Hun Manor made his move, the other Shui Hun Manor experts could no longer restrain their killing intent. We won't rest until we're dead. Save our emperor. The 7 beast kings of Nemesis Forest were also enraged. They roared as their eyes became bloodshot. Let's stop here. However, just as the 2 armies were about to fight again, a calm voice came from the sky. The voice wasn't loud, but it seemed to have some kind of magical power. It clearly reached everyone's ears. Whoosh! At this moment, whether it was the human side or the forest of Nemesis Forest's army, everyone subconsciously raised their heads to look at the sky. Who is that guy? Beside him is the Emperor of Tianxiang and a group of generals from the Tianxiang Empire. Look, the one on his right is the Beast King of Tianfa, Big Bear. How could someone from the Tianxiang Empire be with the Beast King of Tianfa? Could it be that the Tianxiang Empire surrendered to the Forest of Nemesis? Damn it! If that's the case, then they're a disgrace to the human race. The gazes of the group of human experts were fixed on Chu Bei. Then, they recognized the heavenly incense emperor and the Beast King, Big Bear. Their brows furrowed tightly. King Bear, why are you with a human? Seeing the scene in the sky, the other beast kings of Nemesis Forest questioned with gloomy expressions. There are some things that I can't explain in a short time. Let's wait for now. Big Bear looked at the other 7 beast kings, then pointed at Chu Bei beside him and gave his response. The other beast kings of Nemesis Forest looked at each other when they heard Big Bear's words. They then looked at Chu Bei with even more confusion. They knew Big Bear very well. It could be said that he was the one with the most violent temper among them. But he was able to keep his composure at this moment. The 7 great supremes of the human race looked at each other as a strange look appeared in their eyes. It was as if the scene before them was not what they had imagined. The Tianxiang Empire surrendering to the Forest of Heaven's trial. Their emperor was indeed robbed by Li Ju Tian. Chu Bei's words were like heaven-shaking thunder. What did you say? You, a human, actually helped the Forest of Heaven's trial to frame my Shui Hun Manor. 3 years ago, the death of the old manor lord was known to the world. How did he kidnap the emperor of Tianfa? This guy must have betrayed the human race. Kill him as well. The experts of the Shui Hun Manor stared at Chu Bei with eyes full of resentment as they reacted. Some of the Spirit Xian experts became aware of the gaze of the great elder of the Shui Hun Manor. They seemed to have understood the meaning behind his gaze. So, their imposing auras burst forth from their bodies as they attacked Chu Bei. Chu Bei's expression didn't change in the slightest as he looked at the dozens of Spirit Xian experts from the Shui Hun Manor. He merely shot a glance at them. Suddenly, the bodies of those Spirit Xian experts froze in midair. Then, they exploded with a bang. This entire process could be said to have happened in the blink of an eye. The Spirit Xian experts of the Shui Hun Manor didn't even have time to issue mournful screams. Piles of flesh and blood fell from the sky, and the air was filled with a nauseating smell of blood. The 7 great masters of the human race and the 7 beast kings of the Forest of Heaven's trial were stunned as they witnessed this scene. They stared at Chu Bei as if they had lost their souls. Their eyes were full of disbelief. Their faces were full of shock. They hadn't even seen how Chu Bei had attacked. But these dozens of Spirit Xian experts had died a violent death. They were great masters, but they couldn't have done such a terrifying thing. How can this be? The great elder of the Shui Hun Manor trembled as he smelled the smell of blood in the air. He looked at the purple-clothed figure in the sky, and an indescribable feeling of dread emerged in his heart. The Emperor of the Sky Incense and Jun Tian's expressions changed the least. They had already seen Chu Bei's methods before this. First, he had injured the Beast King Big Bear as if he was blowing off dust. Then, he had carried them across hundreds of kilometers in an instant. Moreover, They were certain that the purple-clothed man would have already died if he had wanted to kill the Beast King Big Bear. Who the hell are you? The heavenly-seeking Great Master Mo Wen Tian, the cold-blooded Great Master Lei Wu Bei, the azure Great Master Meng Hongchun, and the solitary falcon subconsciously opened their mouths to ask. Chu Bei glanced at these great masters of the human race, but he didn't give a response. The great masters of the human race shuddered when they met Chu Bei's gaze. In fact, they felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. They remained silent and didn't ask any further questions. The 7 beast kings of the forest of heaven's trial exchanged glances. Then, they seemed to have come to a unanimous decision. So, they didn't take any action for the time being. Bang! The battlefield gradually calmed down. Suddenly, an explosion sounded in the sky above the Shui Hun Manor. In the next moment, the sky seemed to have been forcefully torn apart by a terrifying force, and a pitch-black hole appeared there. The great masters of the human race and the beast kings of Tian Fa didn't wait for them to react. Then, they saw 2 figures fly out of the hole, and they arrived on the battlefield with a schwa sound. My Emperor, Elder Sister, Big Bear, Snake King, Green Hunter, and the other beast kings of Tian Fa saw the appearance of these 2 figures. Then, they fixed their gazes on one of them. They condensed a dreadful, imposing aura at the same time. However, the 8 beast kings of Tian Fa were about to join forces to kill the other figure. But their bodies were suddenly confined by an invisible force. The 8 beast kings of Tian Fa looked at Chu Bei. They knew that this was his doing. Li Ju Tian. He's not dead. He's the one who kidnapped the Emperor of Tian Fa. His fall 3 years ago was fake. He deceived the world. Damn it. The entire human race had almost started an endless war with the Tian Fa forest because of him. The 7 great masters of the human race frowned as they recognized Li Ju Tian. They were burning with anger. The great elder of the Shui Hun Manor's complexion became extremely unsightly. It seemed as if he had known that Li Ju Tian wasn't dead. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.